All right, let's try this again, people. Sorry about that. A little issue with the chat. All right, there we go. We got it now. All right, people, I think we are good. Like I said, chat just disappeared. Not sure what happened. I've never seen that happen before, but it just literally disappeared. I couldn't pull it back up. So we appear to be good. All right, so I'll give everybody a minute. Apologize for that difficulty. So we're running a few minutes late. So I'm just going to wait till we get some people here, and then we're going to go ahead and start. We will get going. All right, peace, Sister Honey. Peace, Necro Cannon. Again, we're going to get started in a minute. Had a little issue with the chat. Had to go back out, come back in. So I'm just going to wait for everybody to come back in. All right. Well, real quick, I'm just going to wait for a few more people. I see everybody starting to come in. Then I'll go through a couple quick announcements. This topic here is going to take 2 or 3. There's a lot to go over on this. I tried to put together as much as I can get in today, but I know we're not going to be able to get this in one. We'll when I get to it, we'll talk about that. All right, but since we got enough people here, just to go through some quick announcements before we begin, like I usually do, just to keep people abreast of what's going on. Again, I just want to remind people, if you go to my YouTube page, the community section, I put all updates, posts, any events that we're doing down here. Any announcements like the upcoming show Thursday night, we're going to have Bokor Rodney Coleman. He'll be a special guest on Primordial Chaos Radio. He is a voodoo priest of Bokor out of New Orleans. He'll be going in depth on dark magic, the whole voodoo hoodoo pantheon. We'll be getting into that. It's going to be a very interesting show. I have posted that in the community section. I posted it here. But I started putting stuff in that community section because if you're not on a email list or text list or whatever, you won't get some of the notifications. But if you go to the community section in the page, you'll see them posted. Yeah, as many people know, Bokor Rodney stepped back for a little bit. He'll talk a little bit about that on Thursday night, but he's back. I've known him for a little bit, a couple of years. We had a nice conversation last night, but I'll let him, when he comes on Thursday night, I'll let him kind of explain. Some of you might have seen on his page. He kind of explained what happened, but I'll have him explain what went down and why you didn't see him for a while. Because the last time I had him on the show was probably a little bit over a year ago. I think he was on, if I'm not mistaken, last September or October. When he comes on, if you haven't experienced him, he's a very knowledgeable brother. I like his methodology. I like his approach. That's why I try to bring people on the show, that are similar in regards to that. But again, he'll speak on that. We will have Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum coming on. Spoke with him about Cadman. The author of the book that I'll be taking some excerpts tonight contacted him, waiting to get confirmation. So I'm going to bring some of these occult authors, black magic practitioners, and get them on the show. Again, I want to make this clear, not because I agree with everything that they teach. That's not why I bring guests on the show. I'm going to start doing that again. I stopped it for a while. That's not why I'm bringing guests on the show, because I agree with everything they teach. I want you guys to get a well-rounded spectrum of different methodologies that are out there. There's many different approaches. It'll just give you more of a vaster picture so you can see how everybody operates. Not because, again, I accept that everything everybody teaches is 100% true to me. That's not the case. All right. So anyway, long story short, we'll have brother Bocor Rodney Coleman. He'll be on the show Thursday night. Don't miss that. You'll be able to call in, talk to him, ask him questions. Again, I had a long conversation with him last night. We discussed, we're going to be going over the differences between working with saints as opposed to the voodoo deities, synchronizing them. We're going to try to get into Saint Expedite, dark magic. So we're going to get into a lot of that stuff tomorrow. I've also worked out with him where we'll bring him on consistently. I'm trying to bring him on once a month or more. He's very excited to come on, be a guest. He's looking forward to it. So we'll try to make him a consistent regular. I'm going to bring him on, try to get him on once a month minimum or more, maybe here and there, bring him on a little bit extra. So look forward to that. And again, you know, you'll be able to watch it here live. We will have the YouTube working for this one. You'll watch it here. You'll be able to watch it here live or go directly to the radio show website. And you'll be able to call in. So have your questions ready, call in so you can speak to myself and him. And actually Raven Hecker, and we'll be able to address your questions as we do here in the chat. Anyway, all right, that's going to be Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Friday evening, as a reminder, tomorrow will be the cutoff day for invite for the ritual of Obeah, the adversary of chaos and darkness. Oh, excuse me. That cutoff will be tomorrow. That ritual will take place this Friday evening, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, right here in Fort Lauderdale. So those that are coming, I've already spoken to you. You know who you are. If you still are possibly thinking of coming, just please contact us by tomorrow night, the latest. After that, we kind of got to shut it down so we can make preparations and have an exact head count and all that good shit. I do appreciate everybody hitting me up. It's been extremely busy, as I said last week, since the holidays, really the beginning of the new year, with consultations and readings. I'm pretty much on track. I've been working a little extra to get caught up, but I'm pretty much still 2 to 3 days out, depending on your schedule, as long as it's in line with what I got going on. Been getting a lot of people from Toronto lately. I don't know what's going on with Toronto, Canada, but I've gotten several clients from Toronto. So I'm glad. I just want to give a shout out to city of Toronto. A lot of people in Toronto, I guess, watching it more than I wasn't aware of. So again, 2-3 day window, give or take. If you are interested in a consultation or a reading, everybody's been doing a good job of specifying which one. Make sure you're clear on which one. And also to save time, in the email, tell me your time zone, because usually that's one of my first response emails. I need to know your time zone so we could schedule accordingly, and then we kind of go from there. Just be clear on those basic details, and then we can set something up. Again, I got several of you emailed me today. I've been busy. I will have the curriculum for the online classes out today. Susie, something, I know I just emailed you not too long ago. And the others that emailed me, just be patient. Give me to this weekend. I was actually traveling this weekend. I was in Tampa. We did some work in Tampa. Well, actually, St. Petersburg. We went downtown St. Petersburg at the University of South Florida. Well, we did some work out there. We did some presentations, workshops, things of that nature. So I spent the past weekend in St. Petersburg and came back on Sunday afternoon. So I didn't really get a chance to do much this weekend, but I will. That is on my to-do list. I pretty much have it done. I just need to proofread it and just go over a couple of things. And everybody that has sent me an email and those that are already on the list will get the curriculum. If you are not on the list or you haven't requested, send me an email. I'll send you all the information. And those online classes will begin at the end of March. I'm looking at the 3rd to 4th week in March. I'll make that final decision. Like I said, we just finished one 2 weeks ago, so I'd like to take a little break in between to kind of refresh, because remember, that's a 6-7 week grind. And if you've taken the class, you know how long it is. It's pretty much it's your Saturday afternoon and early evening. So I'll give you that information. Just be prepared for that. Make sure it works with your time. It usually does. We set it up at a decent time. All right. So having said that, gotten through the preliminaries. For any of those things that I just said, email address in the description box of the videos, you can contact me for any of those things. KHNUM19@gmail.com. All right. So tonight, I want to go over. Some people have sent me emails over the last year or two. I never got around to it. They've been asking to do a show on this topic. It's come up several times here and there, but again, just with so much shit going on and this and that, I never really zoned in on focused on it. So I said, let me go ahead and actually touch on this, because Obeah is one of those spiritual systems that still has a lot of mystique behind it. There's not really there's even literature in the books you get. In my opinion, there's only a couple of books that are fairly decent on the subject. Most of the shit you get mainstream is from an outside perspective. So I kind of wanted to find an initiate that wrote something, and which I did. Now, my experience with it, as I've mentioned before in the past, is very limited. I have not really done a lot of intense work. I am familiar via where I grew up in New York, and people I've known over the years. A lot of them, you'll find a lot of people that practice Obeah, not all of them, but a lot, are what they call Shango Baptist, right? Or Shango Baptiste, which is like a cult of Shango. A lot of them, it's kind of almost similar to how, Haitians and other people in the Caribbean will hide behind Christianity, but really they're practicing voodoo or Ifa. Well, it's kind of similar, but the thing still, if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, that's a little different with Obeah and all them other paths. There's still, again, a lot of unknown, a lot of mistake. And we're going to go into that tonight, and we're going into some technique, and you'll see why after we go over it. It's a very intense path. It's working with the spirits of nature, the forest and the woods. We're going to talk about Sasek Bon. We're going to get into Papa Bones, that's concept of the Prince of Darkness. Really, this path can be likened, and I want to make this clear, it's a combination of shamanic witchcraft, chaos magic. There's also an interesting aspect of Kali Ma, which comes via Trinidad, and I'll show you who she's synchronized with and how they access and work with her. Now, understand where this spiritual practice, yes, it does have some roots in other African traditions, which we're going to get into that in a minute. But you will find this prominent in the West Indies, mainly Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago. It's in other areas, but you're going to find in those three, Barbados too, but you're going to find mainly most of the practitioners where it's really popular are Jamaica, Trinidad, and Tobago. But again, it's since not too long ago, it's still kind of looked down upon. It was illegal for many years if you were a known practitioner. But anyway, I have some key points from a book, Obeah, and I'm just gonna go over the bullet points, and we're gonna discuss them. I wanted to mark. So what I did one section, just enough so we can get through tonight to cover some material. All right. Again, we're not going to be able to get through it all. First, the word Obeah, let's establish that. Comes from the root word obi, which means power. When you say you're an Obeah man or Obeah woman, we're talking about power. That's what it means. A person who has the power, but more so who has the ability to control the power and make the power work for them. I'm going to show you how this is really connected to the left-hand path as far as the black flame. Even the terms they use for Papa Bones, who carries out the spirits of Sasek Bon, we're going to get into in a minute. They refer to him as the Prince of Darkness, etc. The Abdus. I'm going to show you how this is all connected. We're just looking at another system. Now, the unique thing about this, you can't really compare Obeah to really any other spiritual system. It's not a system that you can be taught because it's structured and organized. You're going to find that out. It's being able to master the understanding of it. It's very personal. It's something that the individual, when they obtain the power via the path of Papa Bones, they got to be able to harness that power. So it's not really a system, even though you have high priests and there's initiations and things of that nature, but it's not a structured system. This is what, in my opinion, makes this a little different, say, than Ifa Voodoo or voodoo, though you will see some similarities in the practices. But don't get caught up in that and look at it on the surface and think, oh, it's very similar to voodoo or voodoo and Ifa. It's really not. In my opinion, it actually supersedes all of those paths because it's very intense and personal. And I'll be honest with you, this, because of the shit that's involved with it, this is not for everybody. Okay. Hold on one second. Excuse me 1 second. How you doing? Yeah, what time do you have? So we have 10 minutes, 9 Let me get that one. All right, let's go to somebody. There you go. All right, thank you. No problem. All right, sorry people. Girl Scouts knocking at the door. So I hadn't had these in a while. But Girl Scout s'mores. I'm trying to figure out who the fuck's knocking at my door this time of night. But anyway, that'll give me something to munch on later. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, this is one of those paths that, again, to me, it supersedes all of the previous. So as I said, the word Obeah comes from the word Obi, which means power. But let's get a little bit into it. All right, I just got bullet points. I'm not going to be reading long sections because I told you I don't really like doing that anymore. It becomes pretty boring. So I underline some hype. Now, the book I'm coming from, I suggest you get this book. This is one of them. And I've actually contacted this author. He's an initiate. I'm going to get him on the show. It's Obeah, a Sorceress, Osue. The author's name is real long. I'm going to put it on there so you guys can get the name. I ain't even going to try to butcher that shit. All right. Phil, Rams, buddy. Hey, Phil, late Christmas, man. Late Christmas present with the Rams. Allison, come on. I mean, hey, it is what it is. But that was a bullshit ass. I'm not neither fan, but I'm just saying that was a bullshit ass call. Anyway. All right. So Obeah is like witchcraft, a sorceress art exercised by the one who possesses the Obeah power. I underlined that one brief sentence because, as I said, you're going to find out just like any other path. Okay. You are going to find out when we talk about the path of self-mastery. One thing that I love about this path and what I've studied on it and the little that I practice it, and I plan on actually doing more with this now, is that ability to create. You got to mold this into your own thing. That's what's different. Whereas a lot of those other systems are very traditional and there are rules, regulations, and guidelines. This is about you harnessing your interpersonal power. So how strong or how successful it's going to be is entirely up to you. All right. That's okay. Obeah is a power given to understand and not a system to be taught. I was just talking about that. So it's something you have to raise yourself up to the understanding of. It's not a structured system. There's not like let's look Ifa for an example. There are levels of initiations you must go through, right? And it has to be in that structured order. You'll find in Obeah, there are what some would say cauldrons or naga pots, as you know, in Palo, things of that nature, but it's not mandatory. That is sometimes an added element, which I'm going to get into down the road in a second. All right. If any reference to other African and Afro diasporic faith community, I would say it's like being Nadoki. I did a show on that a while ago, if you're familiar with Nadoki and African witchcraft. It's ruled by spiritual intelligence. So what this path is governed by, it's hard to put that into words, spiritual intelligence. I don't really know how you do that, because spiritual intelligence is something you harness. It's not something somebody can just describe. It's not somebody that can just, you know, put it into a group of words. You understand when you have that spiritual intelligence. How? By your growth, obviously, by your change, by the things that you're doing, the success that you're getting via your results. All right. So we have to make that clear. Don't get this confused, because on the surface, it can look like it's connected to some of those things. All right. All right. So what I want to talk about before we get to Papa Bones, right? Let's talk about Sasai Bones. Something's pronounced a couple different ways. You'll hear it, right? I'll break it down into 3 methods. Sasa is the essence. We're going to talk about that. And that's a word in itself that means something. But the whole Sasa Bon Sam. Sasa Bon Sam. Sasa Bon Sam, right? It's usually translated as devil and is the particular spirit which the Obeah have made a pact. The negative connotation is further stressed by people under the influence of malefic forces, being said to carry a siesa or sasa, right? Now, you can trace this back. If you're familiar with that term, you probably have heard it before if you're familiar with Ashanti culture and religion, right, or spirituality. Now, I said early in the beginning, you will see some connections, like, and I'm pointing this out. Now Sase Bonsam is what they refer to in Obeah as the spirit of the woods, the trees, nature, herbs, element. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. You will find a similar concept in the Ashanti practices. So, as I said in the beginning, there is a connection with what we would know as some of these African, but don't let that fool you. You're going to find out why in a second. As we see, the name Sase Bonsam is an amalgam of several words, and it is in its own right a word of power that can be used to call upon his presence in various permutations. Sasa denotes a particular power, while Saman is usually understood to be a ghostly apparition. Now, as you know, in Obeah, they have a thing where they nail spirits and shadows to the woods when they're doing particular work. I'm going to get into that a little bit. Some say if you wander, I want to say some say, if you get lost in the woods, that you can be devoured by. We'll get into that in a second. It's a very powerful spirit. It represents what we know as the Prince of Darkness in nature. Papa Bones is going to be that manifestation, which I'm going to get into that in a little bit down the road. He is what we call the Prince of Darkness. He's the one that carries out the path that we connect with. They both serve a purpose. They're the same, but yet different. I'm going to get into that in a minute. All right. This word is never used to define anything natural or human. It holds a complete and distinct supernatural meaning. It is something external that can be given or encountered, right? The Sasa, on the other hand, is part of the human soul. This sounds very similar to understanding the black flame and the gift of Set. It's going to get even more clear to that. So remember, this is something, and then we're going to talk about how Papa Bones, how you literally spiritually, reason why it's called Papa Bones, how you pass that power of Sase Bonsam through every bone in your body. We can get into that in a second. This, the only way I can put this, best way I can put it, this isn't a path for straight bitches. I don't care if you're male or female. I ain't saying bitches in a feminine negative. I'm just saying if you straight pussy, bitch, scareful, fearful person, I wouldn't, don't fuck with it. And I'm saying that because I've known people that have fucked with it and, you know, thought it was some Ifa African spirituality thing, and they were not ready for the power, because you're really harnessing some dark magic via nature and via what we call the Prince of Darkness. And I'm going to show you that. All right. So it's part of the human soul, the part that can shift shape and fly out. There's a vampiric element to this, you're going to see, because it is known that Obeah high priests and priestess have the ability to shape shift and take the forms of animals. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I saw. One of my first hip to this, and again, you know me, I don't like to talk about certain shit. 1992, I spent with my oldest son's first mother. I spent 6 months living in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. And the neighbor that lived next door to my in-laws' house, he was a Obeah man. And he would take literally take flight as a crow. I mean, I know it sounds crazy. Everybody in the neighborhood knew it. I seen it. I don't like to talk about certain things like that because I don't want to sound like a space cadet. That was probably my first raw experience with it. I mean, I don't even know how you can put that in words. We know that is possible by being able to master what we know, raise your vibration and frequency, and master the molecular structure, for lack of a better word. There's a part of there's a part of that we know in vampirism, but it's hard to explain without taking out. What's up, buddy? What you doing? What you got your towel around your waist for? Like you just came out of the pool?
Because I want.
Okay. But yeah, we'll talk about that. So shape shifting. All right. Hence, it is often judged as a negative part of the soul. Sasa is also associated with the doopies, which are considered to be both ghosts and nature spirits of fairies. That's going to get later on when we talk about in the woods, nature, things of that nature. We're going to get into that in a second. Sasa is a form of the active and transformative agent of the soul. So now when we break the word down, that's why I went into 3 different forms. But now we're focusing on the first part of the word, Sasa, right? S-A-S-A, all right? Okay, I want to make this clear. Say it again, is the active and transformative agent of the soul. So it is the prime essence you must tap into for that change or that growth. Because remember, this is something that lies dormant within you, okay? So that's where that true Sasa resides. It's not outside of you, just like any other path of self-manifestation. You're not looking for it somewhere externally. Nobody can do it for you. Let's go. We're going to get even more in depth with it, all right? As it is the Sasa that is laid to rest during funerals and the activities of shadow catching, right? You might have heard this term. This deals with, again, nailing spirits and to trees, or shadow nailing, as it's called here, is the Sasa that is caught and nailed. As for the nature of Obeah, and so it comes to pass. This is a fairly accurate summary of this, but here's a brief, and this is from another work. This is Williams is his last name. I took notes here. I don't know if but anyway. And so it comes to pass that Obeah did, in a sense, develop more and more as a religion in which, of course, the object of worship was not the divine being. So I want to make that clear. This is not that, again, which makes it distinctly different, because even in traditions such as Ifa, Santeria, there's still that external divine being. Whether you call them a Lofi or Laroon, whatever you want to call it, that does not exist in Obeah. The divine being that you're trying to tap into resides within. The Sasa is what activates it, because remember, it's a transformative agent of the soul. Once you activate it, but really you're going to find out when we go later on down, really this path is about being connected to the Prince of Darkness, as that's what they call Papa Bones. It's one of his titles. Is being knowledgeable about the mysteries of death. Sound familiar? Something I've been pumping for years. Those that are connected to the death current, okay, are connected to this transformative change. Everything that I'm saying up there is what I've been saying for a long time, or trying to get people to understand. All right. So it's not looking for some divine being, but rather the evil spirit, whether we refer to him as Sasa Bonsam or Obani, and whom he must regard either as the evil one, which is the devil or the adversary, or perhaps more properly, one of his satellites. Notice how it says satellites or fragments. There's many different aspects to this, and I want to make this clear. All right. The act of worship, however, is not really one of adoration, but pacification or propitiation. Now, I always use that term propitation when you're working with your ancestral spirits. You're not worshiping them. You're not praying to them. What does the word propitation mean? To acknowledge, to lift up, not to lift up to worship, but it's more of an acknowledge, to propitate something, right? That's the term that's used here. The same methodology is used. Understand what that means. Actually, just so we're clear, just so that word seeks in, because I think that's important to understand. Let me give you the basic definition. And we'll go on to Wikipedia. All right, here's the basic term. You can look this up. Just so we're clear, we have just not so much for us here, but again, when this video posts later, I like to make sure I cover all avenues so somebody who might be brand new watching it understands. Propitation, the action of propitating or appeasing a god, spirit, or person. Atonement, right? Propitation is also called expiation, is the act of appeasing or making well-disposed a deity, thus incurring divine favor or avoiding divine retribution. That right there is probably a little bit exaggerated, but you get the point. So make sure we understand that word. Same way you should approach when acknowledging working with your ancestors, right? Wherein an effort is made to assuage his enmity and restrain his vindictiveness, meaning the prince of darkness or the devil. Okay, let me say that again. To assuage, which is to use it beneficial, or to restrain it. That's a representation of you. That's your job as the adept. You got to be the facilitator of that. That's what's unique about this. Nobody can do that for you. Not just this path. Pretty much if you're on a path to self-mastery. So you want to tap into that raw power, that dark energy, because it can be very beneficial for you. But it's up to you to know when it needs to be restrained. All right. At the root word, we find sasa, which is similar to akan, A-K-A-N, concept of kra, denoting the part of the soul that flies out. It is a potency, sase bonsam embodies. In addition to this active part of the soul, we have the saman, and notice phonetically, life force is very phonetically close to semen, right? We'll get into that in a minute. And momosa, which are spirits holding troubling potential. It was these spirits that became known as dupies in the Caribbean. The part of the soul that is animated and animates is known as sum, right? Now, this also deals with, if you've ever seen, you'll see this even in voodoo, you'll see it on this path where they can reanimate an individual that has passed on. They can reanimate it by using this power here. I don't like to use the word zombies because that becomes a little spooky, and I've actually witnessed that. That is probably the most crazy, bizarre shit you will ever see when the body is what they call reanimated. When you see that shit, goosebumps and hair will stand up on the back of your neck. But it is real. And everything that is possesses, all right? Or again, the sum, right? So remember, before we continue on, okay, but now we're going to get into the aspect of Sase Bonsam and connect it to the Prince of Darkness. So we see this as an integral part that is integrated in you. So where do you connect with this energy? How do you work with this? How do you activate it? We're going to get a little bit more into that. It permeates through your DNA. It's just you got to know how to activate it through the blood. Now there is some spiritual practices in this when it comes to making herbs and elixirs. In some paths, there's the mixing of animal and human blood, because they say the mixture of ingesting animal and human blood together can give you certain heightened spiritual powers. All right. Like I said, it's not a path. This is not a path. If you really want to explore the depth aspects of African spirituality with dark magic, this is the path. Trust me when I tell you. And it's funny, the thing that fucking pisses me off, you got all these conscious channels, right? Like, let me give you an example, right? Before I came on, I seen a notification, right? This is the shit this is where people's heads are at, right? This is where people's heads are at. Hold on. Okay. You see, for an example, right now, we're talking about this. And for an example, not to judge, but you look at Sanetta's channel. He's live right now with the mighty Hebrew come in peace, but with the voice, who gives a fuck? With the voice of thunder to teach the uncivilized, right? These are so-called people that claim to be spiritually conscious, and they don't talk about this power. Because if we stop focusing on that Hebrew bullshit and garbage and stop having these discussions, who gives a fuck about some Hebrew nonsense? And I understand it's views, ratings, and all that bullshit. But my whole point is, how come there's not platforms where they're talking about this? Because if we tapped into the potential of this, we wouldn't have half of the fucking problems that we claim we have in society. I guarantee it wouldn't be, or hardly next to none, as far as police brutality. I guarantee, look, I keep telling people, if you want shit to change, if you want the paradigm to change, you better tap into your spiritual power, your connection to your ancestors, number one. Number two, by way of doing that, it's going to activate, we'll use this term here, the Sase Bonsam within you. And nobody can fuck with you once you have that power and ability. Matter of fact, people will start fearing you, literally. And you won't have to really say anything or do anything because it's an energy that you naturally carry. You can literally walk into a public place, walk past somebody and smell their fear. And you don't even know them. You never seen them, never met them a day in your life. Let me give you an example. I did that today in CVS. There were 3 young teenagers sitting on a bench, and I walked in, and I just wanted to test something. And as I walked by, you could smell, literally, you could smell the fear. When I came out, literally, they were all 3 of them were gone. Not because I had a problem with them. I didn't. I just wanted to test something. What I'm trying to say, I wanted to test it because what I was getting ready to do tonight and some stuff I've been leading up to before this video, I wanted to try some shit. If we were able to tap into that ability collectively, see, it's not as effective when you got this one here doing it, that when we're scattered, we're not on the same page. You understand? What can usually happen is if we came together on a collective level mentally and harness this power, we wouldn't be having the problems we've having. People would be afraid to fuck with you. All right. Well, anyway, listen. Let's go a little further with this. As the Prince of Darkness, and it's the exact word in using here. The secret is frequently said to be held by the Prince of Darkness, a clear reference to Sase Bonsam. So where does the Prince of Darkness reside? Watch how this takes it to the black flame, which bugged me the fuck out. And that's why, as I was doing some research on this is why this book stood out to me, because it connects it really to Set. It's just giving you a different synchronization with it. So this Prince of Darkness, or Sase Bonsam, resides within you, right? And it's mediated through a Christian lens. The understanding, however, is not Christian, because even the Prince of Darkness knows the secret of evil. And darkness, it doesn't mean that he is evil incarnate, as the Obeah Mang and the Wisi Mang are not automatically evil because of the wisdom they possess. Remember I talked about that in the very beginning? Rather, the Prince of Darkness represents the knowledge. Listen to this. The Prince of Darkness represents the knowledge of turbulence and radical change in the world. And because of this, he can be a source of great stability. Let me say that shit again if you missed that. This is why we connect with, and let's get this clear. We're talking about another aspect of an archetype. Because if you saw a video I think it was yesterday or the one before that, I can't remember. People are still fucking confused on what an archetype is. And I want to make sure we got this clear. Stop thinking an archetype is only another reference to what you know as a deity, be it Shango, Obatala, Tahuti, Asset, whatever. An archetype, make this clear, could be a spiritual system is an archetype. A certain concept can be an archetype. A structured plan can be an archetype. Okay? This is another archetype as far as a concept to connect with this divine within called the Prince of Darkness, the Black Flame, the Gift of Set, whatever you want to call it. They're all archetypes. Stop fucking thinking that working with archetypes is only limited to working with these. I'm saying that because I still get emails on this. People are confused. And the only thing they say in the emails is, I'm working with this archetype, this and that. Well, I said, well, what is the construct of that archetype? Well, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What do you mean? Okay, what you're working with the archetype. The archetype represents something. Tahuti, for an example. We'll just use something basic. What construct did you create to work with that archetype to work your magic? Because if you have not formulated that, then you're still unconsciously in an external worship mode. You're just not conscious of it. You might say, no, I'm not. You are. Trust me. All right. So let's get that out of the way and make sure we're clear on that. All right. So the Prince of Darkness represents the knowledge of turbulence and radical change in the world. And because of this, he can be a source of great stability. Why? What's one of the main principles in quantum and metaphysics? Anything that doesn't change, what? Dies. You must be changing and evolving constantly, or you're dead. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You are dead. This is why we tap into various aspects of dark magic, black magic, Prince of Darkness, left-hand path, path to self-mastery, because we want to tap into that divine. We want that power of being a god or goddess. We don't want to just read about it, listen to somebody give a lecture about how great we used to be back in ancient Egypt and all that bullshit. No, no, no. We want to know in 2019, how can we be great, powerful, right this very minute as we're talking right now? I don't give a fuck what happened 400, 500, 10,000, 20, 50,000 years ago. If we're building on history, okay, cool. Okay. If we're building on history, it's great. But once we drop the history and figure out how can we apply this, now we're back into something else. Oh, man, these cookies is calling me, man. Water. See that? See that? That's that sachet bon sang telling me to eat one of these cookies. Let me stop. Let me try one of these motherfuckers. They better be good. For what they charge. I usually don't eat on camera, but fuck it. Yeah, all right. All right, but anyway. We're leading up to Papa Bones. It's getting there. I just want to go through this in this order so you can get an understanding. I want you to get the basics. Again, what the word Obi means. We went over that, which you get the term Obeah. Obi just simply means power, but it takes on a much deeper meaning. All right. So now we have the basics of sachet bon sang. We're going to get into Papa Bones now. And there's some work you can do with this. And I'll tell you what I've started. But again, I know you hear me say this about other paths. I know you hear me say, I just like to give people fair warning. Don't fuck with this if you think it's something light to be fucked with. And we're going to get into that. All right. The same reference, Williams and Bell. That was one of the excerpts I let earlier. I can't remember what book this is from. I got to look it up. I think it's the book Obeah. It's just called Obeah. That's one. It was written in like 1929. You could actually pull that up. They have it on Scribe, and it is available on Amazon. I have seen it on Amazon. All right. They both suggest that Obeah held some connection with the Witch of Endor and her practice of Ob, as well as the Python veneration found in Dahomey and Aouida, right? That's Dumbala we do, by the way. When you see the veneration. So as I said before, you will see to the Ashanti, you will see to Dahomey, and in some aspects of West African spirituality, there will be some slight connections. But again, if you came in late, do not confuse this system with any of them, because it's not, it's really completely different. All right. And indeed, the yellow python is by some as sacred to Papa Bones, a vehicle of his sasa or power, right? From island to island, Obeah is understood slightly different in terms of practice, but there are a few common elements if it's in St. Vincent, Trinidad, Tobago, or Jamaica. Obeah constantly holds a connotation with red and dangerous spirits of the woods, right? I was talking about this earlier. We're going to go a little deeper now. Hence, the most common association with Obeah men as being herbalists and spirit workers. Their sources of power, however, are volatile and dangerous powers of the night. And it is not uncommon to hear them say that they gain their powers from the devil or the prince of darkness. All right. These are terms. Now, again, as I said before, I know some Shango Baptiste. That was my first encounter with this in the early 90s in New York. You will find a lot of people who lay claim to being Shango Baptiste usually practice Obeah. And I remember Obeah man telling me that. We get out, but he didn't look at the prince of darkness or the devil the way a religious Christian would. Remember, we just read earlier, don't look at this through the lens of Christianity because you'll get sucked in with that religion. We just clearly said in this path how the prince of darkness is looked at. It represents that radical and turbulent change in the universe or the world that is necessary and in essence brings stability. So rather than you let that dominate you, you take the initiative to control it. All right. Very important. When it comes to the sorceress technology of Obeah, remember, you're going to see aspects of shamanism, which we're going to get into. Witchcraft to a sense, sorcery, yes. Witchcraft too. You will see elements of all this because remember, any great practicing adept or black magician has the ability to utilize all those elements when need be. Again, that's entirely up to you. But again, what's unique about this path as opposed to many other paths, there is not a structured, organized system for this. You must find your way when you tap into that core sasa that resides within you, that the essence of the prince of darkness that permeates through your DNA. You're going to see how you need to express that, tap into it. It's not going to be the same. Whereas opposed to some of the traditional African systems have a structure, like for an example, Ifa or Santeria, you must, some can get their warriors first, it depends, but usually it's your alekes, then it's receiving your warriors. There might be small ceremonies, depending on what comes up through divination. You might have to receive the hand of a ruler. Some might have to receive the Obeah, the twins, and I had to go through all that shit, right, when I was in that stuff. And then obviously getting to the point where you're crowned, right? It's not like that on this path. You understand? That's the difference. There's not all of that traditional structured stuff. This is dealing with the core essence of dark or black magic. Like I said, Thursday night, we'll be talking a lot about this on a similar level with Bokor Rodney Coleman, who is out of New Orleans. He's a Bokor who I've known for a couple years now. Some of you guys are familiar with him. We'll be going into this, and I want you to hear it from somebody that, other than myself, that practices dark magic or is into whatever you want to call it, the fucking dark side, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Anyway, all right. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Watch this. Some might say it is eclectic, but I have my reservations with this. We might see the Obeah man as the icon of the chaos magician. There's a lot of chaos magic involved in working this path. And some look at the Obeah man or woman, let's not just say man or woman, as a chaos magician. Why? Because you're dealing with a multitude of so many different elements. What's up, buddy? Y'all? You know, I love you.
Yeah, I'm just staying out for good.
You just what?
Just staying out for good.
Okay. Good boy. Love you. All right. So in essence, the Obeah man is the icon of the chaos magician. If you practice chaos magic, you know how intense it can be. What is one of, not just one of the core elements of chaos magic is embodying what the archetype represents. Not just the deity, but the whole construct, the whole concept. One aspect, for example, if you've read Liebe No by Peter Carroll, you'll see he said he suggests in there sometimes you can go to the extreme by taking on the form of the deity, by dressing up and absorbing every element, meaning you could wear the same regalia, carry the same elements, do heightened mantras that reach you to a heightened sense of transcendental consciousness, whatever the hell you want to call it. You understand? There's an aspect to this because remember, the Obeah, man or woman, is trying not to worship deity, not trying to become or connect with some external deity. They are trying to transform into the Prince of Darkness, that raw power and what it represents. That's the difference. All right. So the Obeah man is the icon of chaos magician as he enters reality. Here, listen to this. If this is not the same definition I've been using for years about greater black magic, well, here it is right here. This is one of the main principles of Obeah. And one of the reasons why I never really talked and got into depth with it, because I didn't want it to get misconstrued. Why? Because I'm not talking about people, more so regular listeners to the channel. Sometimes people take something and they run with it because it becomes entertaining. And they're not really taking it serious, or they're taking it for face value, thinking it's some concept they can latch onto and get quick results. It don't work like that. It's a disrespect to the craft, and it's a disrespect to the people. That when I say disrespect, it's like saying you didn't put no time, effort, energy into the work, and you're going to go get yourself jammed the fuck up. It makes those that have done the time, effort, and energy do the work, it just makes it look bad, which creates all these stereotypes, which also, as you know, if you understand the history of it, this was outlawed in the West Indies for years, until not too long ago. If you were a known practitioner, you can get locked up and go to jail. I'm saying it's shit like that because people spook it out, or foul shit goes wrong, and foul shit can go wrong with this. I've seen people get devoured by the spirit of Sase Bonsam. What do I mean by that? Open up their psyche and spiritual centers for forces and energy that they're not prepared for. Then they start to go crazy, have personality disorders, chemical imbalances in the brain. They start hearing voices. They become a ripe candidate for possession because they can't facilitate the voices. Because remember, when you tap into this type of energy, these spirits are able to read and feed off of the light that your chakras are giving off, mainly your crown chakra. Remember, any entity can incarnate via your crown. If you study basic metaphysics and spirituality, you know that. If you are vibrating at such a low frequency and you open yourself up to these susceptible forces, this is how uncontrollable demonic forces, and I say demonic forces, only in the sense that now you're at the bay. You're not in control no more because you didn't prepare yourself. The psyche must be prepared. The mind must be right. Your system must be planned as far as, let me not say planned, you must be prepared. I don't want to use the word plan because that's not really the correct word. When you start working with dark magic, dark forces, what tends to start happening is, now, what you do is, it's like when I say, I don't want you to think it's just some external spooky thing coming into you and take it over. Look at it as your brain having an overload. So you start to access multiple fragments of your subjective realm. These demons that I'm talking about are self-created. You've created them. How have you created them? From your moment of birth, from everything you've been exposed to as a child to an adult. You create your demons, you create your gods. But it's just, and that's why I said there's a shamanistic aspect to this, because what do they do in shamanism in the Native American spirituality? What is one of the concepts they use when somebody is raised up to the level as a shaman? They will use some ritualistic practices, sometimes hallucinogens, to activate a portion of the individual's brain. The hippocampus area is when that's affected, whether good or bad, is where you get your spiritual impressions from. That's how you're able to tap into your quote unquote subjective. Hallucinogens work on that part or aspect of the brain. That's the part of your brain that you start to receive spirit. It's located in the cerebellum. Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum talks about it in Dark Light Consciousness. Go read it. That's one of the key components of the functioning of your brain and how it operates via, let's get this straight, the neuromelanin, right? Let's get this straight. I want to make this clear. Because the neuromelanin are the pathways that are utilized to transmit that information. So what I'm trying to tell you is when you're not prepared to assimilate and take it in, it's look at it like a computer short-circuiting or haywiring. You overload it with too much information. Then you start to get experiences and glimpses into your subjective realm that you may not be ready for. All right? I want to make that clear. All right. Got sidetracked. All right. So, okay, so the chaos magician, as he enters reality and bends the world in conformity with the possibilities inherited in his powers. So what is one of the goals of the Obeah, man or woman? To bend, what does this sound like? Greater black magic. To bend the world in conformity to your will, to your powers, to the outcome you desire. Obeah is just another intense form of greater black magic. Okay? This is a reality, people. Okay? And this is why I highlighted just some of these notes in this book, because I wanted to point out all these terms we're familiar with being on this path, right? Now watch this. While the chaos magician is eclectic and psychological in his work with the paradigms in the manifested world, which why I went over everything I went over it as far as having an overload, because it's very psychological when you're working this type of system. And I want to make this clear. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to make everything on this path sound. I don't want this to, and this is why I bring up earlier, like we're talking about this, and on Soneta's channel, they're talking some Hebrew Israelite bullshit. The reason why, okay, I don't want this path to ever get presented as gimmicky, comical, and entertaining, because it's very serious shit. And I don't say it's serious in a religious, fanatical way. I personally take my craft serious. Yeah, I love to joke around. I love to have fun. But those that know me, when it's time to go to fucking work, it's time to go to work. I don't ever present this path as gimmicky. I don't ever want people to think that it's a social club or it's the in thing to do, like all those groupies do on all those other conscious platforms. Everybody really is just there to socialize and have their egos stroked. This right here is about doing intense work. All right. Anyway, let me go on. I'm going to get through this and then I will go through all your questions. I want to make sure I get through the parts that I have marked. I'm almost there. And then we'll talk. I have a couple more sections. So let me get through these and then we will go through it. All right. So bear with me. It's a lot. There's going to be two parts to this. I can't do this all in one sitting. It's just too much to do in one night. And to me, that would be not productive because I don't want to throw all this shit out at one time. Let a couple hours sink in, and then we'll do another part on this. It might be 3. I just don't know. It depends on how much we get through. All right. So then it goes on to say, so even if an Obeah man can be seen as working with Kali Ma, right? We're going to show this. There's an aspect of Kali to this. What she's known, I'll show you what she's known in this in a second when we get to it. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. You say Kali. How is Kali connected to this, right? Well, if you know in Trinidad, okay, there's a lot of West Indian, East Indians in Trinity or Trinidad. There's a mixture. There is a lot of people in Trinidad. There's a whole cult following of Kali in Trinidad. If you know and you really study Kali, you know that. And actually, I know Trinidadians, not here, but in New York, who throw elaborate ceremonies and rituals for Kali Ma. Right. So Kali is connected to this. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And this is why I keep trying to tell people all of these things are connected. You just got to be able to put the dots together. All right. All right. So Kali Ma side by side with nailing shadows to trees and making herbal infusions worthy of any alchemist or root worker. This is not in any way an eclectic practice. It is a pragmatic one. The idea is that whatever tool, spell, or rite the Obeah man infuses with his Obi, his power or will, for the duration of a use, be a form of Obeah. This does not mean that the Obeah man is generating a religious system around his practice. See that? Not You're creating, this is what makes this difference again. As you, quote unquote, I'll use the term, get engulfed in the mysteries of this path, you start to shape and form and create your own platform, how you're going to work with the spirit, how you're going to work with the Prince of Darkness, how you're going to tap into your Sasa via Sase Bonsam, via these dark red spirits of the woods and nature, shape shifting, right? There's vampirism elements to this too. And again, further confirming that everybody thinks a lot of these practices, vampirism and all that, is very modern day and is affiliated exclusively with Europeans. No, it's not. This is nothing new when you go back to West Africa, when you go back to North, East Africa, Egypt. This is something this is the shit nobody wants to talk about. Like they want to talk about fucking Hebrew Israelites and how great we used to be in Africa and slavery. And don't you see the intent, the distraction? Why are we wasting our time and energy talking about all that nonsense that's not going to do nothing? And we're sitting here, people are sitting here destroying their mentals about what Donald Trump is doing. Well, we would have the ability to make Donald Trump a non-factor if we tapped into this power. But no, we feed into it. When you feed into something, you give it energy. What does that do? It gives it life. I always tell Christians, if you're so afraid of the devil, stop talking about him and remove him from your religion. Problem solved. But then if they did that, what purpose would their God of the Bible serve? It wouldn't serve no purpose, because one needs the other, vice versa. Or are they just a paradigm of the same thing? Are they just the polar opposites of the same fucking thing? Okay? You understand that on this path. I always pose that. Look, I've been kicked out of churches for asking that question. Because remember, religion is based on fear. It's based on the God-devil hip. It's based on God, angels, prophets, messengers, holy books, people, congregation, right? In that order. And then beneath that, if you don't follow that construct, then you go to this place beneath the ground called hell where the devil resides. Well, if you remove the devil out of it, you wouldn't need anything above it because it wouldn't be necessary. So one needs the other. You can't, it's really in essence the polarity of the same thing is what I'm trying to get at. And I posed that to many Christians over the years. Okay. What would be the point of your religion if this crusade to overcome this fictitious mythological character, the devil? What would be your purpose? What would be your, there wouldn't be. So now the question is, does God need the devil more than the devil needs God? Ask yourself that question. Okay. But anyway, just something to think about. All right. The only rituals and works I have seen repeating themselves as a type of core ritual are those for Papa Bones and Anima Solar. Now, you'll be familiar with voodoo, but it's not the same thing. I'm going to get into that. This is, I'll show you. Hold on a minute. Who holds and moves the Obi, the power. Anima Solar, the lonely or solo spirit. We'll get into that in a minute. All right. In Trinidad and Tobago, Obeah may or may not be found amongst the spiritual Baptistes and the Baptiste Orisha, and at times amongst the Shango, right? The author in this case, his mentor was both. He was a spiritual Baptiste Shango, right? Obeah is considered to be a power needed in the world, a natural power guarded by the red hot spirits of the night, and the initiation is always conferred by the devil taking hold of the Obeah man, so this fire can be transmitted to the acolyte. Do you understand this? The fire, black flame, is transitioned or conferred or passed into the acolyte or the initiate. So use the term very politely. The devil or the Obeah man takes hold and transmits this fire into the acolyte. I hope you caught that. This means that the Obeah is actually initiatic, and hence the reference in the annals of history describing Obeah men as being composed of a guild is not far from the truth. So let's talk a little bit about this fire. We're going to get into this in a second. What is this fire? We're going to get in a little bit in depth. What is the connection with Anima Solar? We'll talk about that in a little bit. So now we've got Sase Bonsam too, who's known as that spirit of wood. He would be in reference to when you were told about the boogeyman. That's where they got that concept from. And the way you'll see it, when I get into it, if I have time, get into it tonight, you will see how they describe him, how he's described in the pantheon. Well, that's where they get this horror bedtime mythological story when we were kids, the boogeyman. That's who the boogeyman is. Sase Bonsam. And why I said we were taught from birth to fear something we should have been drawing ourselves closer to. Reflect back. You know what the fuck I'm talking about when you're sleeping in your room when you're a kid. You might have the jacket hanging on the back of the closet door. You thought it was something in the room. That's the boogeyman, motherfucker. You were activating Sase Bonsam unconsciously. You didn't even notice it. Stop fronting when you were a kid. Sometimes you might have watched a horror movie or something, or you thought something was under your bed, or you felt something pulling on your bed. That's the boogeyman, motherfucker. Okay? This is where they get the concept. Yes. And we'll talk about the doopies. We'll get into all this in a second. I know I mentioned that. All right. Obeah differs from here. This is important. I highlighted this little section here. Obeah differs from witchcraft, where one can be born with this particular potency. Obeah is a power inherited, and thus all Obeah men make part of a succession of this inheritance, this particular sasa. So there's a lineage thing, like in many other paths. There's a genealogy and an ancestral thing, which is very common in these spiritual practices. You will find elders, high priests, etc. It's usually passed down in the family lineage, right? The sasa gives to the Obeah man the power to awaken the spirit of plants and bones. We're going to get into the bones of us and how this is where Papa Bones comes in now, to take the power of Sase Bonsam as a representation of the Prince of Darkness and pass this energy. Literally, there's a whole science to every bone in your body. I know that sounds fucking crazy, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. All right. It gives the power of night hunt and domination over spirits. There's the vampiric element again, especially the doopies, black, red, and white. In this, we find Obeah to be shamanic in nature, as it is about spirit traffic and domination of the invisible realm. But we also find the power of night stalking and skin leaping here, right? How does this differ from astrally projecting yourself to a targeted attack of something or an individual? Okay. Make sure you're catching this shit now. Okay. Potentially resting in the sasa of the Obeah man, but given to the Obeah man himself to unbridle. In truth, the sasa is a riddle written in fire and embers and injected into your bloodstream, and you become Obi. Well, there's your answer, how it's actually the fire is put in you. That shit ain't for everybody. Best thing I can tell you is not, that shit is not for everybody. Okay. All right. It is the presence of this Obi that is detected by Sase Bonsam and Papa Bones and constitutes a bond akin to a pact. So that actual ritual, like many other practices you can liken it to, I like to make pacts with spirits. I've done it and do it consistently with the Holy Death. Same thing. It's no joke. All right. When you make a pact with the Holy Death, it's a very similar concept as just described here. But as you know, when you make a pact, what's the key with the pact? Staying consistent with it. Okay. And I've always said this, and that's why I've done a lot of videos on and off with the Holy Death. It's a raw energy. But if you want to get quick results, and I've worked with different aspects of it, if you want to get quick results, trust me when I tell you, if you're willing to go in, if you're looking to open past roads to financial success, I got to attribute my last 4 or 5 years of success to that. Okay? Because you can conjure up anything you want when you're willing, one, to understand this concept here of integrating with the energy or the spirit, whatever you want to call it. And that pact is personal. You understand? It's very personal. And once you're willing to stay consistent with it. I don't want to say loyal like in a religious sense. Loyalty to yourself, yes, but stay consistent with the work. And look, like I say, every time I talk about the whole he does now, the left ear just starts ringing hard. And I know why, because in fact, that's that reminder. Do you understand? Last time I talked about it in there, I got a severe headache and started feeling nauseous. Okay. That sometimes is just little basic effects of the energy that you're tapping into. Today, kid you not, let me tell you today. I got back into my office around 2:30, and I started doing, there's some similar here at the back of this book, some mantras and invocations, if you will, for Papa Bones. As I started to do it, maybe about 15, 20 minutes after, I started feeling really sick, but I knew what it was. So I'm trying to, we're going to get into a little bit more. I'm just trying to tell you, it's something you need. That's part of it sometimes. And some people will just get small effects like that. They'll feel a little something like that because they prepare themselves. But those that have not can get serious complications. And we're going to go into that in a little bit. All right. Okay. I will get to all your questions and comments as soon as I'm done with this. All right. So just be patient. All right. Those in possession of the Obeah, or those called to receive it, are understood to be people often of bad luck that have been called to a narrow road of loneliness and darkness. There's that isolated intelligence, right? When it says bad luck, not bad luck because misfortunate things just happen to them. They're not the norm. Do you understand? They're when it says isolation and loneliness, that is no different than when we talk about the isolated consciousness of Set. Okay. When you tap into this power, but in this case, let's talk about it from the aspect of Cerebellum, Papa Bones, the Sasa and what it represents, the Prince of Darkness. When you have tapped into what the isolated consciousness of the Prince of Darkness represents, it becomes lonely. Why? What do I mean by that? If you're really tapped in and you can reflect back when you really started making the transition and growth on this path, most of you would probably have to admit you ain't in the same social circles no more. Probably a lot of you lost friends because, one, they probably think you're fucking crazy. They think you're weird, or they think you're into some devil spooky shit because they're still on some conscious hotep, Alafia bullshit. So because you're not down with the in crowd no more, you're now crazy, right? But there's a part of you that don't want to be with those people no more. That's how you know you're tapped in. Not because they're dropping like flies, because they're afraid of you or whatever the fuck it is. You'll see your social circles drastically change. Your way of thinking changes. Things that used to bother you don't bother you no more. Certain things you like, you completely fucking despise. All of those things are signs and telltale effects of what this is talking about right here. All right. All right. So let me get through this last section. I am almost there. Almost there, people. I don't know if I'm going to get through all this shit. All right, but let me try. The patron and protector of Obeah is known as Papa Bones. So here's the key representation of what Papa, and that's why I titled the video, The Path of Obeah and Papa Bones. Because he is the main central figure, character, archetype. And don't confuse this with Papa Legba or any of that stuff. It's not the same thing, people. I want to make that clear. I know the terminology can throw you off if you're not familiar with it. Papa Bones on this path would be a representation. Look at it this way. Papa Bones would be a representation of the physical manifestation of the adversary. Just like when we look at Set, Satan, Lucifer, whatever aspects, titles you want to give it. Where Sase Bonsomo, the Sasa, is the spiritual or the raw energy of the black flame. And it's facilitated through nature, creation, spirit. So that's the raw power. Now let me transition that to Egyptian Luciferian magic. That will be likened to the black flame. And what emits from the black flame, or the benefits of the black flame, is the gift of Set. And the manifestation, or the anthropomorphic or physical manifestation of it, would be Set. That's the physical target we would hone us in on, which activates what represents in us. That's the physical aspect of the archetype, right? This is the same thing here. You're just getting different terminology. All right. So we also have in the Caribbean the wood spirit, Papa Boyce. The two haven't been suggested as being identical with one another. Papa Boyce is understood to be a protector and helper of the spirits of the wood. He is an old spirit carrying around his bamboo horn and bamboo sticks. In fact, he is the spirit of the bamboo and is a great shapeshifter and can turn himself into any animal he pleases, but favors the stag and the wild hog or the pig or the boar, right? Shape-shifting is a part of this, okay? Which in essence is very vampiric in nature. Because in vampirism, you could take flight and take shape and form of any of these aspects. So we're seeing in this system here, sorcery, witchcraft, black magic, vampirism, chaos magic. Now you see why this is a very intricate path that, in my opinion, there's still so much not known about it. It's not widespread. It's not talked about openly on a wide scale level. And when you do the research, there's not a lot, and there's a reason for this. There's not a whole shitload of books on this that you can read, and there's a reason for it. Because it's not, again, I got to go back to what I talked about in the very beginning of this video. It's not a path or spiritual system that is structured or has a certain design and it's taught a structured way. That's the reason why. So it's hard to, especially for outsiders, to write books on this that have no experience with it on any level. I'm not saying you have to be a full-blown, exclusive to this, but you should, if you're writing books on it, to me, you should have some experience. And this is not one of those systems where you can kind of moose it and write a book based on just your standard research. All right. Okay. Wood is also a quite helpful spirit and is said to help men and animals in trouble in the woods, whilst bringing terrible catastrophes upon those that anger him. In this way, he holds more function of pathfinding and guide than does Papa Bones, meaning Papa Boyce. Oral tradition tells that Papa Bones was married to the woman of the Lake of Pitch. In the Lake of Pitch. The Pitch Lake is found in Loch Brea, southwest of Trinidad. The woman in the Pitch Lake has been called several things amongst them. Kumama, Asase is the Ashanti mother of Ananse and the owner of Earth. Her name would suggest that she's the source of the Obeah man's Sasa. Watch this. Kumama holds similar association and it refers to Earth and her blackness. This is Kali, people. This is the aspect of Kali and Obeah. Watch. Okay. The mother of the Pitch Lake is perhaps more than anything considered a form of Kali. This is why I said, and that's why I did that video on Kali Durga. I'm so fucking tired of people thinking that Kali is just sex energy and sex this. And, female, I tapped into Kali. And Kali is more than just dealing with the Vama Marga aspect of sexual energy. Okay? I'm so tired of that. That's all you see is videos on that shit. Kali, the sex goddess. Well, yeah, that we all fucking know that. That's not a secret. We all know that. That's great. But these are the hidden mysteries of Kali that nobody talks about. I did a video not too long, last week, Kali Durga, to show you it's the warrior path of Kali. Durga, as we know, which is a deity in itself, but it represents the same Shakti of the divine feminine. It's the exact same thing. They represent the same thing. This is what this is talking about in this pantheon, Kali Ma, right? Because Kali Ma, as it mentions here, is known in this form of manifesting or coming forward from this Pitch Lake in Trinidad. And as I told you, there's a large cult following of Kali Ma in Trinidad. If you know you know this. So look now, we see West African, Northeast African spirituality incorporated in this, and now we see the Dravidian aspect
or what we know today as the Hindu aspect. Because remember, Kali Ma means black mother goddess. That's it. You understand? Let's just make sure we're clear on that. So Kali is not just about sexual energy and Vama Marga and all that shit. That's great. We all know that. Tantra and all that shit, great. But how come we don't talk about this path that can be very transformative, very raw and aggressive in nature? Because it represents that duality, right? The masculine and the feminine, both are needed. Because remember, what does it say? This represents, in essence, the power, the other aspect of power of the Obeah, right? Now watch this. So this form of Kali is akin to Tripur, Bhairavi, this is in India, and Dhumavati, as some pronounce it, the more destructive and Saturnine aspects of the Mahvadiyas, great wisdoms of Kali Ma. That's the shit I focus on more. Let me say it again. The more or greater destructive or Saturnine or Saturn-like energy aspects of Kali. Why? Because those warrior aspects deal with destruction and reconstruction. It destroys those parts of your cells that need to be destroyed and reconstructed by you. Kali brings that awareness, the aspect of Kali Ma on this path. That's how it's activated. It brings that awareness. What is it about yourself that you need to fix and change? You understand? What is it? Well, Kali will bring you to the awareness of what it is. Kali Durga does that too. So I don't just work with Kali because she's a sex goddess and sex this and that. Fuck that shit. That's all surface bullshit. We all know about that already. Who cares? If that's your only aspect of working with Kali, then you don't know. You're not really on this path. That's where I say it becomes gimmicky and shit. Because all the videos you pull up, the mother goddess, the sex goddess, blah, blah, blah. Great. But let's talk about some real hardcore destructive work. Let's talk about that road clearing work, that doing a self-inventory and stock and check of yourself to really come to the realization of what's fucked up about you. Not just talking about it and saying, I need to deal with my shit, but what shit in general do you need to deal with? Because if you're just making a blanket statement just to make yourself feel good, then you're not really tapped in the way you think you're tapped in, right? So there is an aspect of Kali Ma in Obeah, right? Via, especially in Trinidad, all right? Then it goes on to say, in particular, the form of the Dhumavati, or the wisdoms of Kali Ma, where she is propagated as a large black rock with hungry, bloodshot eyes and bleeding mouth, which serve well as an icon for the mother of the pitch lake. There is clearly an interesting transition here with Tripur Bhairavi, which represents the becoming of the mother of the lake pitch, while Bhairavi is the lake. The symbol and what it represents has merged into a unity of mutual reference. Tradition imparts that the daughter of the pitch lake was Anima Sola. That's where Anima Sola comes into play now, right? In this particular system, all right? Hence, the Christian icon of St. Anthony of Padua holding a child is at times seen as Papa Bones holding Anima Sola. In Palo Mayombe, St. Anthony is known as Kuye Lumbembe, a sorcerer's priest born from thunder and lightning, Sasi, not much different from St. Cyprian. I can testify to Kuye Lumbembe and Papa Bones sharing a distinct commonality, which has led me to embrace St. Anthony of Padua as a proper icon for him. Now, here's the aspect that I've connected with, is St. Expedite. Okay, St. Expedite, or another icon uses St. Expedite, given because of his speed in effectuating workings, but also his association with crows and the period of the daily cycle ruled by crows, namely from twilight to twilight. All right, the last thing I want to go through, I'm gonna have to, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get into all this. Let's see. No, let me see. Let me get into this section here. I'm gonna try to get through this, people. I'm going to get to your questions and your comments shortly. Just be patient. All right. The path of Papa Bones is not for everyone. It holds a certain allure and a promise of power, but possessing the Obeah comes with the price. Now, here's where I say the work, the dedication, the consistency, and not to take this light. It holds a certain allure and its promise of power, but possessing the Obeah comes with the price, and this price is related to the knowledge of death. Remember, I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, working with the death current is just not to, again, I hate that gimmicky shit. I work with skulls and wearing all black and, and I'm conjuring up demons. It's deeper than that. Here's why. Listen, okay? Because one of my goals is I don't want this path, like all these other follower paths in the conscious community, I don't want it to be a path where everybody's a fucking follower and it's gimmicky. We don't want to be those hotepers that put on the costume every day. The big ass ankh and, and the dashiki and splash the oil on. We don't want to be our version by putting on our all black and our Baphomet pendant and saying dark, gloomy things. Fuck all that shit. All right. So it comes with the price, and the price is related to the knowledge of death. It might be because of the knowledge of death. Some Obeah men found it opportune to work with Loyola's spiritual ex Francis Loyola as a way of understanding the complexities of the mystery. All right. The path of Papa Bones is lethal in the way that he gives his children tools and formulas of a direct and instant power that infuses them with the ability to severely destroy and alter whatever comes in the Obeah man's path. Let me say that again. That's black magic in essence. Let me say that shit again, because that tied into an earlier statement. The path of Papa Bones is lethal in the way that he gives his children tools and formulas of a direct and instant power that infuses them with the ability to severely destroy and alter, destruction and reconstruction. To destroy and reconstruct whatever it is you need to alter that comes in your path. It's black magic, people, in a nutshell. This is a very intense path of black magic. That's what Obeah is. If you don't think it's, fortunately, I run into a lot of people that think it's very voodoo in nature. It's not. Don't confuse it with that. It's not. It's much more, in my opinion, intense. And it's not to knock voodoo, because I practice voodoo. You guys know that. I'm not knocking one or saying one is lesser or greater than the other. What I am saying is don't confuse the two. People tend to look at shit on the surface and make stereotypes and fucking judgments. And that'll get you confused all the time. Trust me when I tell you that. Right? All right. Then it says, caused by all these associations with death, the passion of Christ and crucifixion, Papa Bones has been syncretized with Satan and holds as epitaphs the Prince of Darkness. These are all Papa Bones. The Prince of Evil, the Prince of Hell. The fact that the Obeah men gravitate towards grammars of the black arts and their practice, which is often known as working the Kabbalah, has certainly contributed to this association. Obeah men tend to be amused by this association. Now, here's the important part. Obeah men tend to be amused by this association. And the Shango Baptiste brother I knew in New York, who was an Obeah priest, this is what he used to tell me, something similar. They also hold that Papa Bones is more like Moses than the biblical Satan. Satan, in the cosmological vision of the Obeah man, represents, listen to this, the power of exorcism and the knowledge of death. It's not religious. That's what Satan, Prince of Darkness, or the devil represents in the form of Papa Bones. The knowledge of death, listen to this shit now. The knowledge of, this is what I mean when I say, this would describe what I mean when I've been saying for a while. This is how you know you're working with the death current, whether you call it working with the spirits of the dead, Palo Mayimbe, whether you call it necromancy, whatever you want to call it. Outside of the gimmicky shit, this is how you really know you're working with it. The knowledge of death represents the total knowledge of existence. And therefore, the knowledge of is what constitutes the Obeah and gives the power of transformation. How long I've been saying now the death current represents transformation and change within the adept, the black magician, whoever you want to give it, whatever title you want to give yourself. Okay? You're seeing this. This is a repeated pattern. It's breaking it down to you in a multitude of different ways. So if you ask, why do we do the rituals? Why are we tapping into these different archetypes? Why are we familiarizing ourselves with these different spiritual paths? They're all trying to show you different methodologies to get to this path of transformation and change, which leads to what we all like to run around and say, I'm a god or I'm a goddess, whatever. How the fuck float your boat? Whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Transformation and change, regeneration and growth, deconstruction and reconstruction. Okay? You can sit there and read Coming Forth by Day and research the Metu Neter and read the history of all the dynasties in Egypt, the pre-dynastic Egypt, the 46. Who gives two flying shits? Because in 2019, that history is going to do you absolutely nothing. It ain't going to put no money in your pockets. It's not going to change your life. It's not going to get you in complete control of your immediate surrounding and environments. It's not going to increase your spiritual power, your knowledge, and your wisdom. It's not going to get you results in your magic. All it's going to get you is a bunch of regurgitated, remembered information that's going to do you absolutely nothing but a nice conversation piece. And when you walk in a circle, if you want to impress somebody and stroke your ego, maybe I said that for a reason. Okay, it's pointless. This path is about getting results now in your life and seeing those results on a spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial level. If you're practicing or studying something that's not doing those things in those areas, then you're wasting your fucking time. You're just a good reader, a good studier. You like to sit in lectures and go to events and put on your African attire and all that fun shit. It's not going to do anything for you people. Trust me when I tell you. All it does is make you feel good for a short period of time. But then when that's over with, the real self is going to emerge anyway, so it don't matter, all right? Okay, so transformation. All right, I think this is actually the last section here. Okay, very last section, then oh, man, God, dang it. All right, let me get to this one here. Let's talk about the boogeyman aspect of Cerebellum. Himself is depicted as the monstrous lord of the forest, a demonic green man that hides amongst leaves and branches of the thick forest and walks with the creatures of the night. Now you see where they got their horror stories from. Watch this, though. Cerebellum is reputed to assault people wandering alone in the forest and consume their vitality and blood. In Jamaica, this deity became associated with the boogeyman, the creature that hides under the children's bed at night waiting to eat them. I love this shit. I'm sorry. Because you know why I love this shit? It makes things so clear in your childhood now. It makes things clear. The shit you feared, that fear was self-created from day one. And remember, fear is what some of this feeds off of it. Just like fear is used to control your emotions via the news, politics, religion, all of that is done intentionally, because if I can keep you in a state of fear, I can control your emotions. If I can control your emotions, I can dictate what I want you to do via fear. Okay? So religion is based on the precept. If we use that construct, they tell you if you don't follow the rules, you're going to go to this really horrible place and burn forever. Fear. So that fear is going to keep me in line. It's going to make me behave. It's going to make me do as I'm told. It's going to keep me in a conformist mentality and way of thinking. Do as you're told, and there's pie in the sky waiting for you afterwards. That's all. All right. But anyway, let me get through this, and I will get to the chat shortly. Obeah is very pragmatic in how it selects its tools. Its vastness allows it to handle a wide range of sorcerous technologies that are then fused with the dramatic power of Obeah. The spirit of trees, plants, and animals who have the woods as their home are natural tutors for the Obeah man. So Obeah is not eclectic in any way. It is not about using tools for an appearance of convenience. Listen to this, this is very important. But as spirit teaches, anyone who needs to ask where the difference lies does not understand the ways of Cerebellum teaches. I hope you caught that. If you have to ask where the difference lies, then you're not understanding this power and how it works within you. Within the cape of Papa Bones, this is deep right here. Within the cape of Papa Bones, there are many veins and many rooms, and it is rarely experienced that the family of spirits belonging to Obeah have become adversaries in relation to already existent spirits in the house of the seeker. As the spirit host, listen to this, as the spirit host resonates with your very own skeleton. Now, this takes on a whole different meaning of what the skull symbolizes in ritualistic work and in connection to you. It thus follows the prime technique of Obeah is what we have come to know as shamanism. Shamanism in this context means a technology for enter into contact with the spirits of nature. These being by seeking out places of power, the use of herbs or drinks for the sake of being tutored by the legions of Sasse Bonsam and Papa Bones, being gifted their particular power as they resonate with the structure of the Obeah man. Papa Bones can listen to this. Papa Bones can be seen as the magical multiverse and the source of power and the ability to bewitch. It's no different than Set and the Black Flame. Okay? Notice it said the multiverse, not the universe. What's the multiverse? There's many universes which transition into multiverse that exist in our subjective realm, our subjective consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Papa Bones represents that magical universe. What is greater black magic? Tapping into the power of your subjective and bringing it into your objective. How many times have I said that over the last several years? That's what Papa Bones represents. So in essence, the construct of this archetype is very similar if we look at the Egyptian pantheon and what Set represents in Egyptian Luciferianism or left-hand path magic or Egyptian Heka. That's what Set represents. The true prince of darkness. Okay? All right? There are as many different Lord Bones as there are bones in our body. Each and every one has specific attributes and specific vibrational qualities that can be brought into work as the foot of the Obeah man walks on the points of the particular Obeah he was granted. So there's different vibrational frequencies, manifestations. It's different polarities of the same thing. All right. I think, okay, this is the last section, people. Damn, I went way longer than I thought. All right, let me get this out. And then at least I feel like I got through everything I had marked. All right, in the last section, then I'm going to take some questions. It's going to go a little long tonight. What we find is that Sasse Bonsam is the source of the Sasa Obeah. The Obeah man possesses, the Obeah is given by mediation of Papa Bones and sealed and quickened by Anima Solar. So from this, Obeah is a power given, and it is up to the Obeah man to develop, understand, and make sense of the Obeah. So who's to make sense of this? Let me say it again. It is up to the Obeah man or woman to develop, understand, and make sense of the Obeah. I keep telling people, you can't get the answers to everything from somebody in a book or from somewhere. There are certain questions you're going to have to find the answers yourself. That's where I get that from. Okay? A person that's not just an Obeah, an adept or a black magician understands that. Okay? If you can't grasp that, you're going to struggle on this path. You can't get the answers from some of the answers have to come from within. Obeah will never take the shape of a system or something neatly organized. There you go. It's not a structure like a lot of these other traditional systems. It's not organized. It's not a tradition. It's not neatly structured. I've said that a million times since we started the video. Okay? All right. Because Obeah is something personal. It is the root for creating one's own world lodged in the spirit connections made. So you're creating your path to self-mastery, your universe, your world via the spirits, right? Wow. Obeah is an enormous vault of intelligent powers you can communicate with mainly by using trance states and searching out places of power. I did this earlier with the mantras. There's some mantras in the back of this book. It will put you in a transcendental state. But as I said, I got sick. I got violently nauseous, etc. But I knew what the power was. And I didn't, not that it startled me, I knew what it was. All right. Obeah is an enormous vault of intelligent powers you can communicate with mainly by using trance states and searching out places of power, but also by the use of dice and candles consecrated in special and secret ways. Obeah is about your soul set aflame in spiritual congruence, and in this way, the Obeah man is the maker of his or her own ontology, made possible by manipulation of the transmutative matter inherited in the cosmic matrix. This is animism, people, but we'll get into that in a second. In this way, the Obeah man is reminiscent of the modern chaos magician, but instead of sensitivity with social paradigms, he or she holds sensitivity with the shifting arches of creation. This mystery is what Papa Bone teaches and can never be conferred in passing on of power. That simply ignites this journey towards becoming Obeah. The process of becoming is mediated by the newly seated one as he or she understands the power and seeking to lodge in his or her skeleton. This, people, the noggin. It is a path of failure and triumph. It is a path of bad luck and fortune, where you become the smith of your own future and wisdom. And last, the root of Obeah is known in Trinidad. The root of Obeah, as known in Trinidad, has been a guarded secret for a long time. All right, that pretty much concludes. All right, that's part one. There's going to be more. I'm going to stop there, take your questions and your comments. There's a lot on this path. This is not something you can just do one video on. I hope that at least gives you a general idea about this path. I mean, there's so much more. That's just scratching the surface. That's just covering the foundations. All right, so let me go through. I know, I'm going to go to the top. I know, so if you recently typed a question in, I'm going to just go start from the top and work my way down. So if you just typed in, be patient. I'm going to try my best to get to everybody. All right, so to save the greeting, peace and greetings to everybody, I'm going to skip that. All right, what else we got? All right, I'm going to try to get to the questions. I'm going to kind of skip personal comments just to say, hold on. Yeah, Sione says, I'm glad you found. Yeah, Bokor, like I said, yeah, he was MIA for a while. He's going to explain on the show Thursday night why he was. Again, if you just came in late, I'm going to have Bokor Rodney Coleman on the Primordial Chaos radio show, which will stream here. And we'll be talking about similar topics on Thursday night. So tune in. You'll be able to call in if you want to ask questions, talk to Bokor Rodney, talk to myself. Don't want to miss it. I had a long conversation with him last night. We talked about a bunch of different stuff. We'll get into that on Thursday. I'll save that stuff for Thursday. All right. All right. Be like water. Love the sound. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's my mama Sita there, man. I don't play with her, man. A skith. Power's in that skith. If you know how to work with that skith and magic, it's some serious shit. Got one right there by my father where his shrine is. I don't play with that. Holy Death is real deal. All right, what else we got? Okay, Be Like Water says, brother, how often should a Luciferian perform a full ritual working, and what should be our minimal daily practice? Again, that's completely, entirely up to you. Go with your intuition. I would always say, like for an example, you heard me mention right during Christmas time. All right, buddy, what's up? What's up? That's my little guy right here. It's my little, he's not chubby, but I always call him chubby because when he was small, he was a little chubby baby. But he's not chubby anymore, but he's still called chubby, right?
It's those.
You can't eat those now. You got to go to bed. I'll give you one tomorrow, okay? All right, where was I? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. So like I mentioned recently, like one of the biggest rituals, because remember, Luciferianism, especially Luciferian magic and rituals,
is heavily tied into working with nature, the planets. It has a lot of the micro and the macrocosm, how nature interconnects with you. Christmas or the 25th being the shortest day of the year, the representation of darkness and light. I told people that was working they should have did. So there's select times of the year, especially the solstices, is a good time to always incorporate something ritualistically via the Luciferian path. But you can do anything however you see fit. Like I use a lot of Egyptian Luciferian magic. I did some invocations of Sethaning Luciferian black magic yesterday. And it deals with the gates of darkness. It dealt with activating the black flame within. That stuff you should be doing on a consistent basis. So long story short, there's not really, you need to create your own schedule that resonates with you. It's that simple. There's not really a set format, certain days you should not do this. The only thing, again, I would say with certain days, you should really, Luciferian magic is very powerful during the solstices. So you should be doing something I would always recommend. It's up to you. And especially one of the biggest days, again, is the 25th because it's the shortest day of the year, especially if you're in the southern hemisphere. You receive more hours of darkness than any other place on the planet. So it represents that darkness and transition into light, which, as we know, Lucifer, which simply is another term for light bearer. The light is the intellect. But it's not just about focusing on that intellect or that light that shines in the darkness. It's taking that intellect or knowledge and showing your understanding of it via your wisdom. Then it becomes your personal truth. That's what real Luciferianism is. So again, there's no set routine. That's up to you. Oh, the Thin Mints only. Yeah, they had the Thin Mints, but I saw these joints. Not as good as I thought they were. They're all right. You make me want to eat another one now that you meant. These are, what are these joints? Girl Scout s'mores. They're all right. I should have got the mints, man. Now you said that. I fucked up. Anyway. Be like water. Oh, man. She's making them fresh baked cookies be like water. My wife will do it sometimes. Not tonight, though. All right. Phil with his Go Rams. Again, I remember my older son's a Rams fan. He started watching when Marshall Faulk was his favorite player as a kid, late 90s. So he's ecstatic that the Rams in the Super Bowl. But I got to keep it real. It's a dirty-ass hit. That should have been a foul, penalty, first down. They'd have ran the clock out, kicked the field goal, game is over. But you see all the shit circulating on the internet today. Turns out the referee that missed that call played for the Rams in the 80s. He wasn't a popular or a good player. Makes me wonder if they had some money on that game. I don't know. It's what it is, but I'm going to be rooting for the Rams. Because I despise the New England Patriots. I don't like anything that comes out of Boston. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm a Giants fan. Only team that I root for that's not from New York are the Florida Panthers. I actually got season plans to their games now. I go regularly. I love my Panthers. Anyway, it'll be fun. Everybody doing the Super Bowl party. We'll be doing a little Super Bowl get-together thing. All right. Oni says, I have an Adoki that's a primordial Egun from my maternal grandfather's people. It's androgynous and helps me with my relationships with people. Okay. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, there is similar, if you're familiar with Nadoki or African witchcraft. Now, I did a video on that. There's books out on that. It can be kind of similar to Palo Mayembe. There is some religious element to it. Again, me personally, I find Obeah to supersede that. That's just me. Because Obeah is not sugarcoating it with nothing. It's about Papa Bones, the Prince of Darkness, getting in tune with this adversary and understanding what it represents, because that's where the true power lies. And they don't even sugarcoat it. That's why I love it. All right. What else we got? Sun Kiss says, oh, how funny, I thought the term sounded familiar. Okay, in reference to Sasebo San. There was a movie with a guy who had multiple personalities, and one of them was a beast. All right, maybe there's something more down on that. I'll look. There was a video floating around on the internet of an African woman falling out of the sky after flying over some people as a vulture. That was crazy. The people were trying to help her out. Yeah, I mean, the shape-shifting, taking on another form, is real. And again, that's why I was connecting it earlier. That's vampiric in nature. Taking flight or taking the form. It all connects to these practices. So, yeah, that stuff's real. And Della Born, peace, brother. Doopy. I know you know about the Doopy being a former roster. Yeah, B. Amos. Yeah, I mean, Sonnet, look, I understand Sonnet is game. You got to understand, those guys, they go online 6, 7, 8 times a day because that's their livelihood from hits. And as I mentioned before, you get Google AdSense checks. You get a certain amount of hits, certain amount of people advertising on your channel. I get pennies on it. I don't really, I mean, you might every couple months get a couple $100 because I don't manipulate hits. The hits you see on my channel, that's just the regular hits I get because this is something that I just do on the side. I don't rely on this, but those cats rely on it. So they got to do sensational topics that entertain, that get people's attention because people go there to see the arguing and the debating and the fighting and the back and forth nonsense and the gossip and the slander and this one dissing this one and this one going in on this one. Unfortunately, that's what it's become nowadays. That is not my intent at all. That's why you see when the videos post publicly, I turn the comment section off. I ain't going to get into no back and forth shit over some nonsense. One, I make this clear. I don't do this because I'm not here to cater to what you like and you don't like. I'm not interested. If you don't like what I'm talking about on my channel, my videos, just turn the shit off and go somewhere else. So you're not going to leave comments on videos. That's why I turn them off. I couldn't care if you like or dislike the video. My job is just to share the information. I'm not interested in that. And I'm definitely not interested in if you like, love, or hate. That's personal. So this platform is to teach and educate. You take the information and do what you want with it. If you don't like it and some of the shit that I'm talking about here offends you, bother. If you don't like me, you don't like the way I look or what I'm talking about, turn the fucking channel off. It's that simple. If that don't work, I mean, I just kick you out the room and just block you and you never come back in. That's it. I'm not here for that. I had my many years of out on the streets debating and doing that whole back. It doesn't get you nowhere. It's a waste of time and energy. That's not what the purpose and the intent is. Now, don't mistake in that if, as I said many times before in the past, if a can of whoop ass needs to be open, I have no problem doing that, but I don't think you want to go that route. Trust me when I tell you. All right. What else we got? Double R. Yeah, when I was talking about fear earlier, so like you say, you could smell jealousy. Yeah, your spiritual senses, if that's the word we want to use, become very heightened when you're tapped into this energy. You can sense all those things: envy, greed, jealousy, lust, fear, right? It becomes an awareness factor that kicks in. And I did that earlier. I like to do sometimes, like anything else, you want to test shit, just see if it works. And I put myself in a certain mindset and form and made myself feel a certain way. I wanted to strike fear when I walked past those 3 young teenage boys earlier today. And I felt it. Not only did I felt it, not just by looking, I just felt that raw power. And I knew when I went in to pick my stuff up and came back out, they would be gone. And I came out and the motherfuckers was gone. That's just how it works. So that's all. I was saying that in reference earlier when we were going over the section about integrating this power of Sase Bonsam, or that black flame, as he referred to as the fire, how it's integrated into you, right? And it's brought out from within. Remember, there was nothing about what we went over this evening that was external in nature. As I said, there is no supreme deity outside of yourself that you're seeking to connect with. That's religion. And this shit right here is the furthest from that. If you are, and again, I got to reiterate this again, do not confuse this with Santeria, Ifa, Voodoo, Palo Mayembe. It's totally different.
And that's why I said you cannot find, there's not a shitload of books out there on Obeah. You can find some, not a lot of good ones in my opinion. One of the ones that are very known are written by non-initiates. And I don't really like to read a book by somebody that's not really experienced in the culture some way or form. I'm not saying they need to be full blown, but damn, at least grow up around it, be around it, and be around people that were around it and educated in some shape, form, or fashion. When you got these philosophers and because they got a degree in some college that states they are, have a bachelor's in history or African science, that don't mean shit to me. Because there's nothing more to me important than somebody that's teaching from experience as opposed to from just reading. Shit, I can get that anywhere myself. All right, what else we got? Yeah, if you, again, I apologize earlier. I know you typed this in a long time ago. Belizean, Bad, and Bruja. Yeah, if you see two videos, I'm going to take that other one off. As a matter of fact, when I first came on, I was having problems with the chat. I couldn't get the chat to come up. I actually pulled it up, and it literally just disappeared. So if you had people who lost me earlier and saw two posts, you had to ignore that first one. I had to go back out, shut that first live feed down, and restart it up. I'm sure that was a while ago. Everybody looks like they're in here now, so I will take that one down as soon as this is over. I'm gonna take that one off. So that's what that was about. All right, what else we got? Demetrius Clark. The Sugar Garden, the former cookies. Yeah, man. Let me tell you something, man. If you look at my cabinets right now, nothing in there with that. That's the only reason why. Let me tell you something, man. It's funny you say that because the only way the family can stay off is if we don't bring it in the house. But once in a while, we'll treat ourselves. And here's a fucked up thing. I ain't even making this up. We were sitting here, and if you remember when the video started, the doorbell rang. I was literally 2 hours prior thinking about going to the store to get some damn cookies, and the Girl Scouts knocked on the door, and that's why I bought that. So anyway, but yeah, Sugar God in the form of the cookies. Oni, you can't have these cookies. See, you're gonna make me eat my third one now. See, every time you guys mention the cookies, you're gonna make me eat them and shit. Sleepy Me. Hi, good evening. Love your videos. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Bafa Marga. Ngazi. Okay. Bay Radio. Obi. Prayers. I mean, that's more Ephraim. In this sense, the Obi is power. Now, if you want to look at it, power via your prayer, that's personal. That's entirely up to you if that's your path, if that's what you choose. But I want to make it clear, I wasn't referring to the Obi in any shape, form, or fashion connected in that sense. But if that's how you work with it and perceive it, that's fine. If it works for you, that's fine. What else we got? Sleepy Me. If I could pass them through the camera, I would give you some cookies. Sister Trina, peace. All right, so I'm looking for questions, not just comments. All right, so here we go. Belizean, Bad, and Bruja. In Belize, many practice Obeah. Every neighborhood has an Obeah woman, man. Not a lot of valid information on it, very vague. So I am paying extra attention to this live video. Thanks for this. And you're right. I'm glad you were able to type that in based on your personal experience. It's, again, even to this day, my wife's from Jamaica, and she knows about it, but even it's still very low key. It's not something talked about. For reasons obvious you can see now. And as I said, till not too many years ago, it used to be illegal. You can get locked up if you were a known practitioner of it in the West Indies, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, etc. It still tend to be kept very, I won't say that super secretive that people don't know it exists, because that's not true, but it is still kept very low key. It's not something that's really open. And again, I keep referring to, there's just not a lot of written literature on it. It's one of those systems, if you really want to learn about it, you need to connect with somebody that's in it around it or knows about it in some shape, form, or fashion. It's not something you can really just read from a book and grasp. Now, I selected that particular work tonight from that book because this is an initiative. And matter of fact, let me see if I got a response back. I had reached out to him to come on the show to talk about this. That's my goal. I was waiting for a response, but let me see while we're live if I did get one. Let me see. Maybe not get it today, but let me see if there's something there. And then I can confirm. No, don't see anything yet. I sent it before I came on, so I'll keep checking maybe tomorrow. But we'll get him on the show. All right. What else we got? Yes, another good comment by Belize and Bad and Bruja. Many Obeah woman men have to live in seclusion, or at least from what I understand, have to be fine being solitary. Yeah, because of even though technically it's not illegal anymore, it's still looked down upon, ostracized by spooky ass, conformist, religiousized people. Okay, so a lot of them take that, seclusion or solitary minds, approach or lifestyle because they don't want to deal with the bullshit. Because it's funny how, but yet this path is crazy. But then you got people, a world full of people that believe in fat little white kids in diapers flying around in the sky, or fictitious mythological characters with wings. They believe that there's talking serpents in the garden. They believe, look, I can go on and on. That's not crazy though. This is crazy. Yeah, go figure. Yeah, that was my little man earlier. Phil Upland earlier. So an energy aspect of yourself can possess you or take over. Yeah, I mean, you can use the term. I hate to use that word possess because it's religious in nature and it's spooky, but I can get your point. Yes. What I was talking about earlier was when you don't have control over the energy within, you can overload, and then you start what people would term, what we know on the surface as hearing voices or multiple personalities. Or what tends to happen is because the subconscious got overloaded, you opened aspects up of your psyche, the energy that you may not have been prepared for. It's just an influx of energy that you don't have control over it no more. You just like an over ingesting, taking on too much. I always liken it to look at a computer when it's overloaded with information, the hard drive. You gotta kind of reboot the hard drive, wipe it clean. I always like to use that metaphor. That can happen on this path if you're not doing your due diligence and you're not preparing yourself correctly. And this is one of those paths. There's certain things, like I said, people have been asking me to do a video on this probably over 2 years now. Literally, I've gotten emails off and on in 2 years. It's something I never really, every time I thought about it, I never got the desire to do it because I don't want certain things to get misconstructed. Not because, like I said, I'm not saying that because out of fear, but my thing is, I don't want to do a disservice to the information is what I'm saying. That's why. And I take this type of stuff very seriously. I don't never want this to be gimmicky or commercialized or as the end thing to do type of shit. Because you never want to hear stories of people getting motivated by something they heard, but they didn't ingest it correctly. So recently it came up again. That person could be in here now. I don't know. And one of the live feeds a few weeks back, somebody had brought it up about Papa Bones. So that was a telltale sign just immediately when I remember seeing that in the chat. It sparked me to say, all right, well, maybe now's the time to do it. Let me think on it for a couple of weeks. And I did. I said, all right, so let's do it. But I wanted to make sure I was able to formulate it and present it in the first part anyway, from every angle. I want you guys to understand it. I don't want to leave nothing unturned in the sense that I want it to be clear, because if you do decide to move forward and do work on this path in some shape, form, or fashion, I want to make sure you're setting it out and doing it the best way you can. So that's why I'm careful on subjects like this. Like I said, it's the same thing You know, when I was presenting the concept in this path of Kali Ma, which is very similar to Kali Durga that I just did, because that's the path I work with. It just gets me sick to my stomach in the last year or so with all this Kali shit. You know, Kali, sexual this, sex goddess this, Varma Marga, tantric sex. Kali represents so much more than that. You're doing a disservice to what it represents if you're not understanding the full spectrum. That is a part of it. I've said that many times before, a very powerful part. But if you haven't dealt with your bullshit, and that's why I refer to the Kali Durga or the Kali Ma aspect on this path of the deconstruction, reconstruction aspect, destroying things about yourself that's fucked up and remanifesting them, you should be doing that first before you're trying to tap into Vama Marga and all that. You're trying to tap into other energy centers, not just of yourself, but other individuals, and your shit is fucked up. So I think sometimes we get it backwards. We're focused on the external first and not the internal, when it should be reversed. You should be refocusing on the inner paths of Kali first before you're focusing on that aspect. That's just, look, you don't have to agree with that. That's just my opinion. Because if you're doing tantric and Vama Marga and your shit ain't right here, it's not right here, you're going to do yourself more damage than good. Trust me when I tell you. So sometimes we get caught up in the gimmicky and the sex this and the sex that. That can be that's what I'm saying. That's why you don't hear me ever presenting it like that. Because I would never instruct somebody to go on a tangent in that and not teach them first about dealing with their personal stuff and getting that in order. Now, if you feel like you're at that point and you're confident, then, you know, power to you and go ahead. But you got to remember, we got to keep in mind we're dealing with it as a whole. Not everybody is everybody that watches the channel is there. So I got to make sure I present it like that. I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't. All right. So, yeah, a wacky J type in. Hippocampus, when I was talking earlier, hippocampus via the Neuro Melanin. The hippocampus area of the brain is, and spiritualists will tell you, and I got that breakdown from Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum in his book, Dark Light Consciousness. He goes into the different aspects and portions of the brain that are responsible for your spiritual impressions, your visions, your experiences, and how you tap into your subjective is linked to that area. Via the path that's transmitted, the path, like the Neuro Melanin is the paths that are utilized to transmit that information of those experiences. And that's why I said before, a lot of people get confused on neuro and neuromelanin. Neuromelanin is the physical manifestation of the pigmentation. Don't confuse that because somebody is fair-skinned or light-skinned. Their neuromelanin might be functioning more properly and correct than some, because we look at somebody sometimes and we judge them based on their physical appearance. That don't mean they're in tune spiritually just because they have a certain look, or they might be a certain pigmentation, or they dress a certain way and they come off as looking like they're cultural, but they could be completely dead in here and in here. Now, Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum has made it clear in his book and on the show several times, it doesn't matter if you're fair skin, light skin, brown skin, or dark skin. Each individual has the same capacity to produce the same levels of melanin. Don't think because a person's neuromelanin on the outside, just because you might be darker than another individual, that automatically gives you more power. That shows you don't know about melanin, and here's why. And I had Dr. Jewel Pookrum on the show, and she explained it one time. If you're dark skinned, you need to spend more time in the sun than somebody's fair skin. You would think it's reverse. So it always kind of bugs me out when I see dark-skinned people down here in South Florida walking around with umbrellas. The reason why, if the heat bothers you and you're dark skin, check your diet. You're probably eating the worst fucking foods. Because here's how you know. If you ever eat a heavy meal and go outside in the heat, you usually don't feel too energetic. But what happens is when you're intaking a large amount of synthetics is what pollutes the neuromelanin, and it doesn't charge up correctly. So and that's why a lot of these prescription drugs, and I'm not telling nobody if they're under a doctor's care, you should always take your medication, whatever it is, get yourself to a state where you're restored and then do the maintenance after that if you're going to deal with herbs and stuff. So I want to make this clear. I want to get what I'm getting ready to say to get misconstrued as I'm saying don't deal with doctors. We should try not to if we don't have to. Because antibiotics and all of these medications, they're synthetics. They damage your melanin, your neuromelanin. The neuromelanin is everything that encodes every vital organ and every aspect of your body that keeps it functioning. They actually, in certain places in Europe, I believe there's bars in England where they have these, they give these melanin, like they give oxygen shots. They literally do this. They've spent, Dr. Jewel Pooker made it clear on the show one time, I forgot the amount of money that scientists have spent on studying this shit. All right. So if you are darker skinned, you need to spend more time in the sun to recharge that neuromelanin. Whereas if you're fair skinned, you need very minimal time in the sun, because the darker the melanin is on the outside, it burns through more energy that's affiliated with that melanin. Therefore, you need to be charged up more by the sun. So to see how so many people are disconnected when you see a dark skinned person hiding from the sun, one, their diet's probably jacked the fuck up. That neuromelanin is not functioning. The pineal gland is calcified, shut down. They ain't receiving no messages. That's what it is. That's a reality. You take it for what it is. I couldn't care if you accept that or not. You come to that realization when you start studying. So you should know that about yourself. There is a connection with nature and being outside and how much you should and should not do. Now, look, based on, I can only go on what I am and how I got to connect that to myself. So that's not going to be the same for everybody else. So I just want to put that out there. Anyway. T South says, I think I understand what you're saying about something we were talking about earlier. I could be wrong. I often wondered if these people were basically becoming their servitors, and wondered if those. Now, I know we were talking about something earlier. I probably forgot. Maybe you could type something down further, just so I'm clear. I don't want to make sure I'm talking about the correct thing. All right. So, Brother Phil, got a good question here. If the subconscious is located in the brain, then what happens when that brain dies or rots? I am not this body of brain. Do you believe the subconscious is, or your spirit, or your consciousness never dies? It continues to exist, right? Consciousness never dies. There was a movie showing this, exactly what you're saying. When the brain shuts down, death, it was with Johnny Depp, called Transcendence. I think that was the name of the movie. I could be wrong. Some of you might have seen it. This came up on one other video. Remember, that's just all these things that we're talking about. Like what we're going to use, for an example, the concept of the sasa, or which is related to sase sambom, right? But the sasa is that pure energy that links you into that consciousness. Energy can never be destroyed. Now, I referred to that movie Transcendence because if you remember in the movie, the whole movie was based on the precept after Johnny Depp passed away. They were still able to tap into his consciousness that still was existing in the universe. If you remember, they were using different scientific methods. So because remember, if you're a being, right, they say in metaphysics and alchemy, you're a being of light and energy, right? In the Rosicrucian order, they say you're a vital life force being. And they call it the silver ether cord. This is what they use in Rosicrucian, because I'm a 10th degree, and I can tell you, they use this concept to help you understand what you're saying, because it's about tapping into that consciousness. Because remember, we're talking about the neuromelanin, right, or the dark light consciousness is everything that we're talking about here. The individual, because remember, it was formed, as Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum said, on the stem of, or the stem of the brain. It's where it was first formed, and it works its way up those different paths to send those quote unquote messages. So once your consciousness, or how you tap into it, is beyond just the connection that you connect with it via your brain into your physical body. So that never ceases. The body up, yes, obviously. The brain, as we know, on this realm of how it functions and how we're connecting to it now, that ceases and shuts down, as you just said. But that consciousness that gave it that life on the physical realm, that's the real you, the true you. That's what this fire, all these symbols, we're getting to this fire, the black flame, all these things are a representation of that consciousness or that energy that can never be destroyed. It permeates everything in the universe, or multiverses, for lack of a better word, right? These are all aspects that comprise that concept. And again, let's be clear, it branches out into different, it's a little more complex than that one, but that's a good question. So if you say your subconscious is your spirit, yes and no. The reason why I say that, because you tap into the higher levels of your subjective realm or consciousness there. So in that sense, yes, but I think it goes, there's more dynamics to it. So that's why I say, in a sense, yes and no. All right, what else we got? All right, I'm looking for questions. Phil says, I appreciate that, Brother Phil. I appreciate you guys, you and everybody else coming here supporting. Yeah, you're on Pacific time, so yeah, you probably get here, I forget, it's 3 hours earlier. What's up, my brother Peter Gosanya? He's back. What's going on, brother? I ain't seen you in a minute. You got that warrior name, man. I was just somebody, you're after somebody. So, who's looking for you? Peter Gosanya. Let me stop. But you got that raw name, brother. Well, it's good to see you back here, man. B. Amos 85. When I was talking about the slavery, look, and I don't say that to downplay it. We understand the history. I'm not saying that I know I joke around, I might have a certain way of conveying it, just because it's frustration. If we keep focusing on the problem and not the solution, we will never get anywhere. We will be talking about the same old shit over and over. And that's why I was talking about that earlier. These platforms just rehash the same shit over and over. And what is that? The problem. Everybody's a master at telling you what the problem is, why this is this and that, what the white man's doing to him, what the police is doing, what Donald Trump is doing. Every excuse and crutch in the book, they can tell you what the problem is, but there's nobody talking solutions. Well, here's solutions. You want solutions to life's problems? This path is one of them. If you're serious and you want to tap into your power, see, these conscious platforms won't talk about this one because they don't know nothing about it. I know. When I go neutral and sign out of my YouTube account and Google my videos just to see what it comes up with, I see it come up with all these cats' videos. I know they see these videos, but they're not going to touch on this shit because this is going into an area and arena that they know nothing about. So you can't milk it with that Hotep shit in this path. You can't, you need a little more to get by than just talk about, it's great. You want to talk about scholarship and history and all that. Puts me to sleep. I had enough of that shit for over 10, 15 plus years when I was in that garbage. You understand? I don't care for that no more. See, you can milk your way through that. This path here, let's talk about how we activate instead of talking about I'm a god and a goddess, let's talk about how we activate that god and goddess-like power. That's the difference. All right. Yeah. Phil says Christians love to judge and project it. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Look, I was just having a conversation. Who was I having this conversation with? Shit. Oh, this was up in St. Pete, Tampa over the weekend. One of the gentlemen that did a presentation, he was talking about the hypocrisy per se of Christians and how they actually make a mockery of it, because if they really were genuine and serious, they make Christianity, to be a good Christian really is a complex thing. And they can't even do it themselves. So not only are they hypocritical of others, but they actually mock themselves and they don't even realize it. And that's why religion will never work for us. That's why religion only works for simple-minded people that need a crutch to lean on. It teaches a broke mentality, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. It promises you pie in the sky and great rewards later. And it's a path for a person can be controlled. So, and usually they get highly offended when you're not in agreement with their personal ideology. I say, who gives a shit? But yes. Oni says, Anima Solo. I used to burn those candles. Excuse me, but they are hard to find. Yeah, they tough. You can get them online, and then when you do find them, they are very expensive. They're usually not cheap. T South says the black flame, Kundalini. Yeah, I mean many different descriptions of it. Now the Kundalini. Now remember, that's that would be an aspect of that serpent energy rising. And in a sense, it is a gift from the black flame if we're going to use a metaphor. But yes, I see the connection. Mandela born doopy conquer, doopy conquer. Yeah, Bob Marley used to talk about the doopies all the time. T South, seeing the boogeyman is like accessing the depth current. Yeah, we were always connected to it, and that's why I was mentioning earlier. I'm sure all of us, in some shape, form, or fashion, can remember when we were little kids sleeping in the dark in the room. When for the first times when we started to become conscious of it. It's like the ghetto boy said, your mind start playing tricks on you. You start looking in the corner. You think you're seeing fucking shadows, or like I say, you might have one of them closets in your room back in the day where you hung a jacket on it or a sweatshirt or a hoodie, and you'd be sleeping in your bed and you look at it and it looks like it's an actual person standing there and shit. Where does that come from? Where does that thought power or that come from? Think about it for a minute. If it says Sase Bonsam is integrated, it actually is the aspect of from within, right? It's the core essence. Who's creating that? You are. No matter what influenced it, you are. So what I'm saying in a nutshell to say is that connection has always been there. But we were the ones that pushed it away via fear. One, because what we were indoctrinated with, and two, what we exposed ourselves to. And it was always promoted to us as something to fear. So now the boogeyman was Sasa. That's what it was. It was always there. You understand? All right, so what else we got? Yeah. Mandela Born, I've heard a lot of stories of shapeshifters and Obeah, people turning into pigs and different animals. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Shape-shifting, whether you want to accept it as a reality or not, that's personal. And you shouldn't accept it as a reality until you confirm it for yourself. I'm not saying via you just doing it, but doing your thorough research or maybe confirming or having an experience with it on some shape, form, or fashion. You shouldn't accept it until you can confirm it for self. But it does exist. All right, what else we got? Brother Phil says, I made a lifelong covenant with myself as many daemons or aspects. Good. Peter Garcia, good knowledge, brother. Thank you. No problem, brother. Trident 72. This is a good question. How does one make a pact? There's many ways. Let me give you an example. Something simple that I will do. Here's something that I did with the Holy Death. A simple way of making a pact, for an example, I will take Dragon's Blood ink. I will get parchment paper, and you could prick your finger and get some of your own personal blood and let it drip on the parchment paper. And you can write out on that parchment paper, for an example, remember what it said there was Sase Bonsam. It's about controlling the energies, one, to shift them in their favor as far as what you want from it, but also keeping control where you don't run it amok. So I'm clear with the spirit what I want from it. And then nothing is free. Remember it said in there, nothing is free. Then the question is to show, not in an external form that you're worshiping something, because understand the difference between spirits, ancestral spirits or relatives, archetypes / deities. There is a difference. We're talking about a literal spirit, right? That works in these systems that you activate via these forces. So it's as simple as clear in that writing on that parchment what you're expecting and what you're willing to give or do to activate that energy. And I would simply write it out, crystal clear with it. I might also sprinkle, on there a particular herbal formula or oil very lightly to enhance the power of the pact/ritual. I'll use a combination of holy death oil. I'll smudge that in depth with dragon's blood incense I like to use for the packs. You can use the sage. I'll smoke it out real good. And then I would like to fold it 4 ways where I can just get it under the base of the deity. I'd like to keep it under there. And it's just there. And anytime I feel the need to recharge it or take a quick look at it as a reminder, not that you're going to need it, but it's what you're doing is we use the term in the beginning, you're propagating the spirit, right? I went over that in the very beginning of the video. And what you're doing is you're putting that out there in the ethers now. You understand? And now that's there. But keep the pack, because remember I was talking about Sase Bonsam, like and you start fucking up and you caught out there running amok in the woods and you're not right, you'll get devoured. That's one way of making a pact with the spirit. There's a multitude of different ways. That's a very effective and a way you can get quick results. Another way of making a pact with a spirit, very simple, by incorporating the chalice in your ritualistic work. Let me give an example. You could be doing a particular working with a deity or archetype, doing invocations, whatever it is you're doing, and then seal it by the symbolic gesture of drinking from the chalice, by saying, I now seal this, whatever, et cetera, whatever work you did, as I drink from the elixir of the chalice, and as I ingest the elixir of this chalice, let that pact become part of my very DNA. That's another way to do it. And you're charging it with your magical intent. Some people like to visualize the ingesting of that while they're doing that as a type of light or energy filling up in the body. There's many different creative ways you can create a pact. Those are just some of the couple of ways that I will use. I do like to incorporate that chalice. And sometimes I've mentioned before in previous videos, I like to take my atheme and charge it up by going counterclockwise 9 times over it, which is symbolic because 9 represents the opening of the 9 gates of the black flame. I mean, there's so many different ways you can work with it. You just got to kind of be creative. But that's kind of some of the ways I'll work with it. All right, what we got to? Brother Phil says, I've tapped into myself, my daemons, and have gotten extreme dizziness and violent vertigo that last 5. Yeah, you'll find, which is a very common thing, and I'm sure a lot of us experience it, you get I like to call them the aftershocks of working with these different energies. Those are very, very normal things. Headaches, migraines, dizziness, nausea, sometimes vomiting. Like I say, when I was focusing in earlier on Papa Bones today, it fucked me up. Not in a bad way. I knew what it was because I was doing work leading up to the show. I started to get into some stuff this afternoon. Then as I got home and transitioned here, and I felt that energy calling, and it was like, all right, you want to do this shit? This is how we're going to do it. So I had to make it clear of the sections and stuff that I prepared. And I was doing, because one of the or aspects of this path is chanting, mantras to bring yourself into a state of ecstasy, or it's very intense and powerful. There is an aspect of that on this path. We incorporate a lot of that in some of the ritualistic work we do down here. But anyway, yeah, that's very common. All right. I'm going to skip some of the personal comments just for time's sake to get to the questions. Yeah, and BM, a good comment. Yeah, this shit will expose a lot. This path exposes a lot of fake motherfuckers. As said before from day one, you can't fake the funk on this path. Trust me, it will show at some point. You can do that in them other paths because you can hide behind, you could put on the, the conscious bling. You could put on your little hat with your wings of Horus and your Ankh and your big ass fat mood rings and say Hotep and you could be living foul and nobody would even know. But see, all that's stripped away. And when you're on this path, yeah, you might be wearing symbols but it's not the same thing. And there will come a period of time where, again, I'll say it a minute, I'm going to say it again. You will be asked to show and prove and demonstrate your power as a black magician in some shape, form, or fashion. Believe me, I've had to do it several times in certain circles. When you're walking in certain occult circles, you're going to be tested. And you better be prepared, ready to show and prove, because there are people, this is their life. They take it serious. They're not just your weekend hoteppers. They're not just your lecture hoteppers. It's like your church folks. They run amok through ignorance and confusion throughout the entire week. And then, they put on the show on the weekend and get dressed up and catch the ghost and speak in tongues. It's all for show. Can't do that on this path. If you're a showman, it's going to be exposed. If you're a showwoman, it's going to be exposed. Because I know when I'm in certain circles, and those that know that have worked with me, I would never do anything in public to embarrass anyone, but those that know me work with me, I will pull you aside and I will ask you certain things, because you could be doing yourself a disservice and be doing certain things that are not productive for yourself because you quote unquote think you're on the path. There's a difference between thinking and knowing. But yeah, long story short, it exposes a lot of that bullshit. See, again, like I said earlier, you got some fool in here, Nathan Henry, who is obviously a Christian. Like I said, this is not a Christian platform. Nobody cares. If you think you're going to be in here in a room where we're trying to learn something way beyond that fairy tale mythology, you're wasting your time and energy. It's as simple as tuning out. Go to a Christian channel where you can preach all your Bible thumping, slave indoctrination mentality that doesn't do nothing. This is a classic example. Your God is a God of death and destruction. Your God is the biggest murderer and killer on the planet. Your God is responsible for all the wars that exist on this planet right now because they all war over the same shit, whether they're Muslim, Christian, or Jew. You should be praying to ask your God to relieve the confusion, which one of them should just come back and say, this is the right religion. Shit, they disunited in Christianity amongst themselves. There's a million sects, and they don't see that ignorance. You got Jehovah's Witness, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventist, Catholic, Episcopal. The list goes on and on. Confusion. Anyway, what else we got? BMO says, I've always been a loner. I tried kicking it with people only to realize why I'm alone. I'm just different than average. Yeah, and when I was talking about earlier, isolated consciousness, the isolated intelligence, you go through that on this path. It's going to happen. It's not a matter of if. It's not a matter of will it happen. It's just a matter of when. And that, as I said many times before in many videos, that transition stage, I'm more so speaking now to people newer or that might be going through it or approaching it. It's usually that fork in the road. It's usually the make or break moment. And I've always said, I found out people that can get past that and embrace it, because I've always said in your challenges, your obstacles, quote unquote, your pain and suffering and your growth spells or your growing pains is tremendous growth. Okay. So embrace that. That's one of the most powerful parts of your journey on this path. I'm not saying, just to you, but I'm saying in general, that it's one of the most powerful parts of this journey. You understand? So it's a good thing. What else we got? I'm just kind of skipping the personal comments to try to just get the question.
I see you guys kind of had some conversation amongst yourselves. I'm going to leave that there. What else we got? Peter Gorsanian, where can we study more about this energy, Kali? One good book to get, and it works with this aspect of Kali Ma, is one of the book I talk about plenty of times on this path. Kali Mantra Magic by Bao Cadman. A real in-depth book. It's very small, but gets straight to the point because I like it because it deals with the destructive and reconstructive aspect of Kali as far as clearing different paths. And I think for somebody that wants to work with Kali, and I said this earlier, I'll say it again. I think if somebody that wants to work with Kali should connect with that aspect first before we get into all the popular, trendy, surface stuff as far as sex magic, tantra, Vama Margaret, and all that, which serves a purpose. If you are right, and whether you're doing it by yourself or with another individual, and they are like energy, and you're sure of that, then fine. But if you're not sure of it and you just want to dive in, you could do yourself more damage. Then good. So I would check out Kali Mantra Magic by Bao Cadman. There's another one. It strikes me. I can't think of it offhand. Email me and I can get you a couple. I'm just drawing a blank. Also in Vampire Magic, there are some rituals to activating the dragon goddess, which is this fiery path of Kali Ma in that aspect. That's another good book. But there's a couple others I can't think of them offhand. Send me an email and I'll get you some, Brother Peter. What else we got? All right, I'm going to skip some of the conversation between you guys. What else we got? All right, I see you guys were commenting. Al Phoenix says this is about transformation and medication. Yeah, I mean, you're going to find the transformation part is so important on this path because this is not a path. For an example, this is not a path where, all right, say you're an individual that been on it, let's just randomly say 3 or 4 years, all right? If you say to yourself today, and then you start thinking back 3, 4 years, and you can't distinctively see the transformation in stages from when you first came on to the present, something's not right. You gotta look into it and check yourself to see what it is you're doing wrong. Because you'll know, trust me, if you're honest with yourself, you know, but all the time it's about transformation, man. And it's all connected. True of Atlanta, how do I learn? I want to learn, one must get. I'm 17. Okay, I feel your energy. I feel your energy, youngin'. There's a lot. Just you're very young, so you can absorb a lot. You're probably more energetic than most of us in this room. Trust me when I tell you. One direction I'll push it in. Two things. I'm gonna give you a book if you have or have not read, and you really should study it and really read it up and down in detail because it's gonna give you the mental aspect of this in depth. Yes, it's good to be inquisitive. Be versatile, study and read a lot of things, but get grounded on some of the basics is the best place to start. One example would be the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti or the Kabbalion, not the Kabbalah, the Kabbalion, K-Y-B-A-L-I-O-N, by the 3 Initiates, which is basically the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti. That's a very good book. I would also suggest you start with these 2. If you say this is where you want to start, and obviously, I'm on here usually maybe sometimes 2, 1, anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week. So, come into these sessions. I also do private online classes a few times a year. That's another aspect. But what I would tell you to start right now is just read Dark Light Consciousness, Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum, and get the Kabbalah and the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti. Just for the time being. It goes a lot deeper than that because if you start, especially when you're young and the mind, man, when you got that fiery,
You don't want to take in all this shit and you're not really absorbing it. So start there, get a foundation. Also, start incorporating, if you have or have not, and again, I know you're kind of young, some aspect of working with your ancestors, because that's the foundation on this path. And that's as simple as it could be a basic altar, setting up a basic altar for them. And for those, and I know some of you are in here that are my clients, and we've done several one-on-one consultations. You know, that's one of the first things we talk about. And it never ceases to amaze me how some people don't have anything set up for their ancestors on any level. And as you know, that's what I do in those consultations. We go into depth of particular things. So I would push you in the area of getting something set up for that, because that's groundwork. That's foundational work. And I want to make this clear. Set up an ancestral altar is not just for the look and the spiritualness or whatever of it. That serves a purpose. It's going to heighten your awareness, your communications, your messages, quote unquote, from the spirit world. It also opens you up to ancestral spirit guides that you may not be aware of, that have been walking with you for generations in your family lineage, not just with you. So it serves a purpose. So I would get grounded in those basics and then kind of work your way out from there. All right. Yeah, Phil, good point. You know, you create your own path. Why would you want to, what do you want to follow? You can't. And that's, Obeah is one of those paths. Remember, it said in there, it's about the Obeah man or woman having the ability to cultivate that power and make it work for themselves. There's nobody going to do it for you. You have to do it. Yeah, Oni, that's a good point. Yeah, Sase Wonsam, and that aspect of, in the woods, it does sound like very similar to Grand Boyce, in voodoo. So like I said, you will see, I mentioned a couple of times through this video, you will see some connections with voodoo, the Ashanti, different spiritual systems. But even though there are some of those slight similarities, again, and not just to you only, I'm speaking as a whole, I don't want nobody to be under the illusion to think it's those paths, because it's not. Now you guys obviously see. And this is only part one. I'm definitely going to have to do a follow-up to this. All right. Yeah, see, Phil's instructing the youngin about Baphomet. Baphomet, okay, let's make sure we're clear. And again, you might, I don't know what you study, just to be real quick, not to rehash it, because we've been talking. Baphomet is a symbol. Don't ever look at it or approach it as a physical deity. It represents a multitude of things to the black magician or the adept on this path. We've talked about it many times. I just did the last radio show, myself and Raven Hecker. We went through this that was part of the main topic of the show. You should be striving to become a Baphomet and what Baphomet represents. Masculine and feminine energy, androgynous. You see the face of the man, the breast of the female. You see that with earth, wind, air, fire elements, water elements. You see the scales on the abdomen, the kundalini rising right by the pineal gland, the fire. The air element, as above, so below, as within, so without. Coaguli on the wrist, which represents transformation, change. So it embodies all those things: totality, equilibrium, harmony. All of that is encased in the symbol of what Baphomet represents, which is why it is such one of the most widely used symbols on this path. Why you see it on pendants, on altars. Then you also have to take into account the Baphomet head inside the pentagram. That's the infernal union of Samael and Lilith, of Set and Nephthys, right? Of any of those archetypes that represent the divine masculine and feminine, right? So those are symbols that project certain levels of knowledge to our consciousness, and we're able to activate them by way of what they symbolize. So that's how you want to approach, for an example, working with Baphomet. I know there's a lot of shit out there. You have a lot of these spooky ass religious people. You have also these inaccurate people who create controversy and sensationalism stories. the Templars worship Baphomet. It's some monster demon, some Satan-like character. There's no truth or validity to that anywhere. Not on this path. So if there is anybody looking at it like that or practicing it like that, that's not the path that I'm talking about. It's a symbol. It just represents that to the adept or the black magician. All right. Old Phoenix, follow yourself. I'm 19. Well, that's good. And that's what you should do. It's good that you're young and already have that mindset. That's a beautiful thing. No, true of Atlanta, definitely don't. Nobody's, definitely, you're not dumb. Never downplay yourself like that. And I'm glad you said that. I've been there. You're young and fiery, obviously, and it's great. Keep that passion, that fire, that eagerness to learn, but get it to the point where you can absorb stuff and make sure you're absorbing. And that's why I have referred you to some of that groundwork to and then what will happen is once that groundwork settles in, then you can start, going into other areas. But get the groundwork done first. That's key. All right. All right, so Owl Phoenix is a good question. How are you with lucid dreaming or becoming conscious in a nightmare? Well, as we know, remember, there is such a thin veil between what we know as, quote unquote, the spiritual astral realm and the physical realm, all right? What you're experiencing, you are, for an example, when you say becoming conscious in a nightmare, you got to look at that two ways. Step one, if you're having a nightmare, whatever the nightmare is about, okay, it's obviously was highly influenced or created by experiences that you absorb. And via those experiences that some you might have stored so deep subconsciously that they may not immediately come out right off the bat, something triggers it to come out. So you're conscious always in that sense, because the very consciousness is the essence or the energy that was the cause of creating the nightmare in itself based on the experience. So I hope that makes sense, or I don't want to sound like I'm drifting off or making it sound too complex, but that element is always there, all right? Don't think because you might be having a nightmare that the fear is blocking that consciousness. Look at the totality of the overall experience. That's one way to process it and put it into play, because if consciousness permeates everything in the universe, how could you not be conscious on some level? Though you may not be able to see it, grasp it, or understand it at the moment, but that element is always there, all right? Yeah, and the lucidness is, yes, having very graphic remembrances or retaining very graphic aspects of the experience. So, yeah, it's all connected. All right, so what else we got? I think we almost at the bottom. Oh. Damn, I hate when that shit do that. All right, let me scroll up. Thing was working so wonderful tonight. Didn't even jump till just now. Oh, see, we got the wrench up in here. He must have came real late. Damn, I may not be able to get to all these questions. I didn't realize this whole thing opened up a no. I will try my best. This may not work tonight, people. We hitting 3 hours. Yeah, I ain't gonna be able to get through all these. Yeah, you guys went in tonight. Just bear with me. Completely lost. Wow.
Holy shit. Damn. Okay, I think that's where I left off. What the fuck happened here? All right, I think I left off somewhere over here. Go Rams. All right, I kind of, this thing jumped super crazy fuckery, so I apologize if I missed some stuff. I'm going to do my best. I'm not sure what the hell happened. This thing cutting up again. All right, what else we got? All right, I'm gonna start here. All right, Straight Panther 79 has, you mentioned the yellow pythons earlier. Does the Obeah deal with the Kundalini activity? Yes, in its own way, most definitely. And that was talking about that yellow cobra is an aspect that's connected of working with Papa Bones, right? Because of what it represents. Yes, it's definitely connected to that serpent energy or Kundalini rising, activating those higher powers. Yes. And there are rituals, which I'll get into in the next session, kind of getting a little more in depth to that. Tonight, I just wanted to get people, connected with the in its totality, the basics. All right. Okay, I must have missed something. I'm not sure. I don't know what you mean by that statement. I need to talk to a Baphomet. I think we kind of just went over that. If you already know how, then I'm confused then why do you need to if you already know how? And I'm not sure what you mean by entity, because that seems very aesthetic to me. We don't look at it as an entity on this path. If that's how you do and it works for you, power to you. And I know you typed this in earlier, because I'm looking at the times. So I kind of just addressed how to embody the Baphomet and what it represents. All of those characteristics is what should be flowing through you in harmony. All of those things. Brother Phil, most of the entities I work with are my own daemons. Why? Because they are stronger and greater than any other energy done. Yeah, your personal daemons, that demonic integration, that's the foundation. All right, let me see what else we got. Try to get through this. Yeah, and that's a good point with Howard Phoenix. And remember, that's also, Luciferian in nature as far as the mindset. You use the term to describe yourself as a quantum theologian. Whatever I believe is real, I will experience. Yeah, and that's true, and that's subjective, because imagine ties into the word imagination. Imagination taps you into the power of your subjective realm. So you can look at anything any way you want. Aesthetic, non-aesthetic, and if it manifests, I always tell people always ask, what is it I should and should not do? Do whatever it is you're doing that gets you results and keep doing it. Not everybody's going to look at it the same way. And I went over this in detail in Luciferian videos.
the concept of what Luciferianism represents, the mindset and the approach. But at the same token, having that mindset, we can also agree to disagree. But each individual needs to do what it is they do that works for them, but also understanding that just because their method or way works for them, they have to also understand that may not work for everybody else. And they can't get upset or pissed off about it just because people don't see things your way or do things your way. I'm just speaking in general now. We understand it. Just like I know that everything that I'm talking about tonight and preview and other videos, I don't expect everybody to accept it word for word that way. You shouldn't, because if you're on your own path to self-mastery, you should have your own concepts and methodology. So yes, as long as we understand that, that's what this path is about. All right. Days Rod, I'm from Nicaragua, where Obeah is very known. My father had too many stories about shapeshifters and tricksters. I believe it. Yeah, them cookies, boy. You see, Gold Dust. I forgot about them. See out of mine. Now you got me thinking about cookies again. All right, Days Rob. When speaking to Santissima Muerta and telling her I was be a devotee, is that the same thing as making a pact with her? Yes, it can be. Again, here's what we got to start doing. I said something a few weeks ago, and I'm not getting on you at all, Days Rob. You bring up a good point. We got to start trusting in the messages we receive, because the tone of that question is you already know the answer, but you don't need me to validate that or anybody else, because you raise yourself up to that personal experience. Yes, as simple as making a verbal statement like that in the way you describe, that is another form of a pact. There are many forms to make that link, that connection via a pact. We got to stop looking at it, and I'm not saying you, but we got to stop looking at it as if there's some set, specific, structured way. So yes, by just simply communing with the spirit and making that statement or communicate it in that form of fashion, that is like making a pact. That's another aspect. All right. Brother Peter Gosenya, thank you for the good info, brother. Love the channel. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Smooth to God. I'm about them things. They calling me. Let me stop. What else we got? I'm trying to get through this, man. I think we almost, I keep thinking we almost there. True of Atlanta. I couldn't tell you how you speak to Baphomet for guidance, because I don't look at it like that way. So I think there's a disconnect there. I don't talk to Baphomet as if he's some type of deity that can communicate. So I really couldn't give you the answer to that question, because to me, you're looking at it as religious. I got to keep it real with you. That would be a religious aspect of looking at it. Again, Baphomet is a symbol, just like when you let me take it as simple as I can. When you look at the athletic logo of a team, right? Let's just use something basic. The Rams, they're in the Super Bowl. What's on their helmet? You see the horns of a ram. So immediately when you look at that Rams helmet, you know that's the Rams, because the symbol communicates that to your mind. That's how you have to look at Baphomet. That's the inner communication. I couldn't tell you how you talk to something that in essence doesn't talk. It's not that type of, so I can't really connect with the way you're looking at it. So I really wouldn't know how to tell you, because I don't work with it like that. So I think you maybe need to look at a different approach. All right, what else we got? Yeah, so you see this a lot, Belizean bed and brew. I see this also in Ifa, voodoo. A lot of these Christians will go to the Obeah, the witch doctor, the Babalawo.
They'll get them to do root work and spiritual work, like you say, to get a lover back or handle a situation, then they go run back into church. Further confirmation that they know within themselves their God of the Bible is weak, pathetic, killer, and murderer. And he's a coward. And they don't even have the trust in them to hand it on. You know how many Christians I used to see come to my godmother, to her botanica, to do all types of work? A pastor and his wife would come to the Egun ceremonies. And that's the first thing that would run in my mind. And look, you know, average Christian, they're not real Christians if they do that. Well, they think they are real Christians. And there's a lot in that boat that do that. But these are the same ones, like you say, that go run back into church. Go figure. But what it shows subconsciously, they don't even have confidence or faith in the power of their mythological God that doesn't exist and represents nothing but death, destruction, and murder. Because like I say, you look across the world today, 90% of the conflicts on the planet are encoded or religion is used as the tool. And this goes on and on. All right, what else we got? Wacky J says, yeah, that's it. Focus on the inner first. I can dig it. To build first job, like go yes. Yeah, the Neuro Melanin. When I was talking about that earlier, Wacky J with Dr. Bynum. Again, I would recommend people to get his book, Dark Light Consciousness. It goes through that. Yeah, or yes, it's a song. Again, I think she assisted you too, True Atlanta. Nobody's going to teach you here how to talk to Baphomet because that's not how we approach it. If you're having a hard time grasping that, maybe you need to find a platform of people that deal with that. We don't deal with that. Yeah, I think everybody, I mean, there's tons of answers to that Baphomet question from everybody. I'm not going to waste my time on that no more. And one thing, good question by T-South. About my question before, I was asking if these people who say they are talking to ancestors are really just talking to their own thought forms that they are programmed to talk and act like their ancestors. Yes, and well, I'm going to say no. Let me explain. Okay, this is a really good question. First and foremost, they are your thought forms in the sense they're not thought forms really that you're completely creating on your own, because when we're talking about ancestors, remember, this is part of your DNA. And one, I want to back up because this is why I say you don't worship your ancestors. You don't pray to your ancestors because you're connecting with something that's naturally encoded in your DNA. So you are them, they are you. So let's establish that. Ancestral spirits can work through the blood and the DNA, communicate with you, or you can hear the inner voice, or even when you get liken it to spirit possession, right? There are certain ritualistic practices that can be done to enhance or bring an ancestral spirit down. Thought forms in the sense, because yes, those thought forms can be passed on down to you from other ancestral beings. So I wouldn't say they're thought forms in the sense that, yes, you do connect first mentally, because all of it, like I said, let me give you an example. People will say, I had a spiritual experience. I was doing a meditational work and I saw my grandmother. She appeared before me. And I said this a million times before. Yes, you did have that experience. You probably saw the image in front of you of your grandmother, because yes, you enhance. That's where the thought form process comes in. You can give it form via your thoughts, because the knowledge and awareness of the situation, or if we're talking about a specific ancestral spirit, is going to enhance that thought form. Like, for an example, if you're going into a work to intentionally connect with your grandmother, you are using the power of thought form to some extent. But there are other certain methods and spiritual practices one can use to create another aspect
when you're commanding or activating the energy of the spirit. So this is why I'm saying, I mean, it's a very good question. There's a connection to both of those. It's not truly just thought forms only, but yes, in a sense, because everything has its point of origin in the mind, even something that is appearing in an experience as external. Yes, you're having that experience. Like people will say it all the time if they're working with a specific archetype, like, you know, the archetype appeared before me. Well, you triggered that, whether you're conscious of it or not, and how you saw the form or the image that it manifested, that's going to tie back and go into a lot of things you've experienced and what you absorbed. Say it's about that particular spirit, ancestor, archetype, whatever it might be. So the thought form process is always in play. That's something that's constantly in play. But how it's activated and how it connects, that's not the same thing when you're working with archetypes, quite the same as opposed to working with ancestral relatives of that experience. So yeah, you have to look at the dynamics of it. But when you say people talking to their ancestors, they are talking to them, because like I said, you are them, they are you. So you are talking to your own thought forms in the sense these are spirits that reside and are connected in your DNA and blood. That's why I said you're not worshiping them. You are them and they are you. So, and I always tell people, when you're working with your ancestors, it's as simple as communicating with them, having a conversation as you would just a regular person. Take the spookism out of it. There's nothing spooky about it. Okay, what else we got? All right. See, young. I know I got a lot of energy. Yeah, I heard the song with extension. You'd have to ask, he's not here. You would have to ask him that, because obviously he perceived it a certain way. I mean, only he can answer that question. None of us can tell you what he meant by that. If he communicated with it as some demon or monster, that's him, but that's not what the path is about. Okay. Straight Panther said, is there any corresponding deities to Papa Bones? Well, yes. I don't know what time you came in. Papa Bones is no different than who we know as Set when we're looking at the Egyptian aspect. It's just in this, he's synchronized with the Prince of Darkness in general. So any archetype that's synchronized with the Prince of Darkness, in essence, is a form of Papa Bones. So that's how you can look at it. But I will say this particular aspect works with, like, when you incorporate we went through different aspects of it tonight with, the spirit of the woods, the red fiery spirit. It works with different fragments of it. So it's a little different in that sense. But as far as synchronizing and corresponding deities, long story short, any archetype that's synchronized with the Prince of Darkness would be Semyon. Peter goes saying, are you talking about Obeah, the best way to proceed on that path? Or I think that's what you mean, not the path path to self-mastery in general. I'll see if maybe type something in later down. I want to make sure we're clear before I answer that. What else we got? Again,
listen to the contradiction and stay. Again, not to go back on, but I see a young dude. I don't know if you're male or female, but you're saying it's real. It's a real entity, but you don't know how to talk to it or communicate. You're asking how do you communicate? That just doesn't even make sense. And if you understand what the definition of the entity is, I don't know where you're getting that from. Nobody on this path looks at it as an entity. Goldust says, every time I attempt to work with Santa Muerte, I get sick. First thing I would ask you, Goldust, is that separate from other stuff you have set up? If it's not, that could be a problem. If it is separate from other stuff you get up, it could, not sure what type of work you're doing. It could have something connected with that. But I would say step one, make sure it's got its own space. You don't want to mix that with any other energy. All right. What else we got? Okay, so this is the thing that I was talking about. All right. Yeah, I see Wacky J put the Catholic Mantra Magic book in there. All right. So what else we got? I'm skipping the comments, people, because it's getting late. I got to get off here. Okay, I see someone answer some of the questions, so I'm going to leave that there. Shakti, the maze runner, what sigils or veves do they use in Obeah? I'm going to get in this. I'm not going to get into that tonight. There's going to be another part on this. Again, want to make this clear. Some paths won't even use it or incorporate it at all. We got to make sure we're clear. One thing that's unique about this path, it really is not similar to any other path. Are there some that do? Yes, there are some that do. There's some that completely don't. Now I noticed, well, we'll get into that. There's going to be a part 2 to this. I don't want to start. Only because I didn't realize we've been on here this long. We will touch on that. So hopefully you come into the next live. There will be a section dealing with sigils or symbols or veves, whatever you want to call them. But for the sake of time right now, we'll get into that on the next one. What else we got? I'm trying to make sure I get to the meet. All right, Damon said, hey, bro, I just want to thank you for doing these videos. I've been tuned in for the last few months learning a lot about Saturday Magic. Cool. Well, I always appreciate that. All right, what else we got? Lord Kushka says, I saw my grandmother in my dreams, but her head was covered like she was sleeping on my couch. Okay, that could mean something. Now, understand this. You'll notice a lot of times, and this is very common when you have experience with blood ancestral relatives. You tend to always see them when they're younger, and it's usually at the most point or time in their life when they were happy. Especially if you'll never see an ancestor, you shouldn't. If they died or they were very sick, it's very rare you'll ever see them like that. I'll give you an example. My mother, sometimes I see her as a young child, but I always see her at a point in her life around the time when she first got married to my father. you'll tend to always see that 90, I'm going to say most of the time. But one thing that stands out to me from what you were saying, if the head was covered, there's got to be more dynamics to that. It represents something. I'm not sure what took place when she was here. That could be something for a private conversation, but there's a reason for that. The head being covered. Okay. What else we got? Gold dust. This is a good question. How do you know if your ancestors are to be qualified to guide or grant positive results? You will understand this. I've always said, not all your ancestors were good or productive people. Now, how you know is when you start doing consistent work. For an example, that's why I was saying, when you start continually doing consistent work with your ancestral altar, you will have, look, they have spirits called specters that can read your subconscious mind. So if they are able to tap in on a level where you're trying to create or see something that you want to see, and they could tap into that, we call it trickster spirits. They can personify as something it's not. So what tends to happen when you do consistent work, you start to get a sense, sometimes when you have an experience, that what you're seeing isn't what you're seeing. And it's as very simple as when you're unsure to command the spirit, one, to reveal itself and be clear on who and what it is. And it's as simple as if you're experiencing something and it's not what it appears to be, it's easy to command the spirit to just step away. That's how you know. Not all of them are here to grant and give you positive results, because some of us in our bloodline have people that were here, lived on this planet, were not productive, good people. And not good in the sense that, they had destructive tendencies that are not going to be beneficial for you on this path. For example, they might have been, I hate to say it, a serial killer, or they might have been an alcoholic, or they might have had some struggle or habit here that they were never able to master or get over. And sometimes their connection back into this realm, because they become disembodied and they can't make that full transition, is via through your DNA and your blood. So it's a very good question. So not all of them are here, but that's the way you're able to detect. That comes in time with consistency and work. It's not something that happens right away. So that's why, one of the things I try to do when doing these videos and the classes and this and that is to teach people that. Now, in the online classes, when we're in a private group setting in a group, we go into techniques and details on that specifically. It's something I just can't do here openly. And there's reasons for that. But it's a very good question. But I would start working consistently in some shape, form, or fashion with your ancestors. And trust me, when something is not productive for you, it's going to be crystal clear, because your consistent work with it has enhanced that inner awareness. Now, if you're just doing it here and there, dabbling, it's very easy to get tricked or deceived. So, what else we got? All right, so that's where I left off. All right, I think we just about there, people. Can you recap on bad dreams? I'm son of Zarabanda. A few weeks ago, I had a dream about seeing my sister in a body bag and dead roosters all around me and input on it. Well, if you work with Zarabanda, I don't know if you work with Palo Monte or Palo Mayembe. If you're working with the synchronized aspect, I can see with the roosters. If you're working with the synchronized aspect, on some paths like Palo Monte, there's connections with Ogun. The thing I would ask you, not to get into that and openly in private here, is there something that you recently did that might have angered the spirit of Zarabanda? Because the rooster thing stands out to me, number one. Not sure, and again, I want to get into that here, and for time's sake, not sure if there's something going on with your sister, obviously. I don't know if you got something connected to that, or you're seeing something, or Zarabanda could be showing you something that's getting ready to happen. But I'd have to get more information. It's probably something you'd want to do in private. I wouldn't do that here, but yeah. Remember, our dreams, dreams are personal. But usually they're a vessel and a tool of communication via the spirits. And one thing you got to always pay attention to, a lot of it, imagery, got to take a full stock of everything in them dreams. Because sometimes the way the subconscious mind communicates it to you, it may not make sense. But pay attention to the colors. I see you caught the roosters, the connection with your sister, but there's something missing there. But it's definitely, and again, I would ask you, is there something that you might have did? And you know, I don't know. But anyway, that might be something to talk about on a private level. All right. I think, yeah, T-South about testing the spirit. Yeah, it's as simple as a simple command, asking the spirit to reveal himself. You know, it's that simple. It's not even that complex, right? And if you feel like, if you're ever doing any ritualistic work or have an experience and you get that feeling of uncertainty, here's very simple. Say, I command you, spirit, to reveal your true self. Remember, you're always in control. Once you start accepting in your mind that you have to do this intricate shit and you're at mercy and you're you know, you're under that power of that spirit, you give up control. Then you're susceptible to anything. It's as simple, but the awareness factor, again, you always hear me talking about consistency. If you're not consistent, it's very easy to not get those one steady results. And you have a better chance of when we're talking with this topic with tricks and spirits is what I'm talking about. All right. Yes, and this will be the last question, Damien. Yes, I do keep a grimoire, or if you want to call it a journal, a notebook. I always recommend people. I mean, I got 2 books actually. One, I always keep charted because you can go back and look at and catch things from previous experience, chart your journey. Any ritualistic work I do, I write in there. The group workings we do down there, I keep in there. The personal shit that I come up with on the fly, the personal work I do, because I can always go back and you'll catch elements, excuse me, per se that you might miss. So it's always recommended. Is it mandatory? No, but I think it's a good idea if you are a practitioner on this path. It's a very good practice. All right. Okay, Jose. So you on Palo Mayimbe? Okay. Yeah. So, like I say, that's something we would probably have to dig further on divination. Now, the other thing I would tell you, did you go to one of your godparents and maybe they can consult their Nagapot and do some form of divination? I would tell them, and I'm sure if you're still connected with them on that level, I don't know. That would be another alternative if you're a little confused on the dream. I would have to dig further via some type of spiritual divination, because it could be a multiple things. So I'll leave it there. But maybe you can do that, especially if it's something that's of concern. I mean, obviously, if it's your sister, and it could be symbolic, and usually dreams are. So I wouldn't take the panic route at first, unless there's more to this that we don't know about. That's the whole thing. All right. Anyway, people, this went a little longer than I thought. I got to wrap this up. There will be a part 2 to this video. Just quick reminders. I know before everybody breaks out. Don't forget Thursday night. Bokor Rodney Coleman will be on the show. Primordial Chaos Radio. He'll be our special guest. If you are interested in online classes, a spiritual reading, or a spiritual consultation, any of the things that I mentioned, and the ritual or the event upcoming this Friday, for any of those things, again, the readings and the consultations, 24 to 48 hour window, preferably 48 hour. I take them as I go in order, and just specify which one you want, a reading or a consultation, if you do contact me for that. All right, so for any of those things, and again, the people that hit me up for the online classes, like I said in the beginning, I know some of you are in here right now. That information will be coming out this weekend. Just Again, I was traveling this weekend. I was in St. Petersburg. So I got back, didn't get a chance to really do anything. I will. That is one of my to-do lists for this weekend. I will get that information out for the upcoming online session that's going to begin at the end of March. All right. So I'll get that to everybody. If you're on the list, you'll get it. If you're not, email me, send it to me. Everybody that's contacted me, I put them on the list. So once it is done in a few days, I will get it out. And I'll be looking forward. We had a good session, the last class, and I know pretty much everybody from the last session is coming back, and I'm sure there'll be some new people. All right, so there will be part 2 to this, probably next Tuesday. In between, I'll be doing some Sith videos. I did one yesterday because we're getting ready to do a working next month with the Sith here. I'm going to squeeze a lot of that stuff in between. But anyway, just stay posted. But we're not done with this. We got a lot more to go on this. So hopefully this is a good start, and we'll build on this next time. All right? Peace.